Your chest tightens as if a fist has wrapped around your lungs. Your eyes flick to the clock, to the email, to the message you haven't answered. You replay the moment, then replay your replay, then rehearse 10 outcomes you don't want. Your breath stays shallow at the top of your chest. Your jaw presses forward. Your shoulders inch toward your ears. You zoom in on one word someone said and build a courthouse around it. A bead of warmth gathers at your temples. Your stomach feels like carbonated static. You try to figure it out, but the harder you think, the foggier it gets. Sound familiar? Here's the promise. Tonight, you install a neural toolkit to stop the spin, reclaim a clear decision in under 2 minutes, and train your brain to return to steady confidence, on command. Overthinking isn't a personality, it's a sequence. An alert pings your amygdala. Blood shifts from your planning centers to your survival circuits, and your reticular activating system tilts its searchlight toward threats. None of this makes you broken. It makes you human with adjustable settings. The way out isn't to bully your mind into silence. It's to give your nervous system a pattern more useful than panic, and give your attention a job it can actually finish. You will not empty your mind. You will focus it, then move 1 inch in a wise direction. Start with your first tool, the fog cutter protocol. Say it out loud in a low voice that you can trust. A fog is just suspended droplets. The moment wind passes through, visibility returns. The protocol gives your brain that wind. First, breathe in a 4-4-6 pattern. Inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 6. The longer exhale tilts your vagus nerve toward calm and returns blood to the prefrontal cortex where planning lives. Do 3 rounds. As you breathe, place a hand on your sternum to feel the rise. It tells your body you're safe enough to notice. Then use the phrase that breaks the spell of over-ownership. I'm having the thought that, put it before whatever worry is loudest. I'm having the thought that I ruined the meeting. Instantly, you create a gentle gap between you and the thought. Now ask 2 questions. What matters in the next 10 minutes? What is the smallest wise action that moves me 1 inch toward it? The protocol ends with a micro commitment you can do within 60 seconds, not a plan for your entire life. Feel your feet right now, the way the ground pushes back. Loosen the hinge of your jaw. Notice the cooler air at the tip of your nose on the inhale, the warmer air on the exhale. Listen for the softest sound in the room, the hum of a light, a distant engine, a bird, and let that sound be proof that the world is bigger than the one thought trying to colonize your mind. This is not hypnosis. It's physics in your nervous system and attention system working together to widen your window. A story. In a fluorescent conference room, you wanted to speak up, but caught yourself running mental simulations like a slot machine spitting cherries. The client had just said, "I'm not convinced," and your scalp prickled with heat. You saw your manager's eyebrow twitch, which your brain labeled as doom. You started writing a monologue in your head so perfect it became impossible to say. That's when you slipped one hand under the table, pressed it to your chest, and quietly ran the fog cutter. Inhale 4, hold 4, exhale 6. I'm having the thought that I'm about to embarrass myself. Then you asked, what matters in the next 10 minutes? Not convincing them forever, just bringing one clear question that moves the conversation. What is the smallest wise action? Ask for the core objection. You raised your hand and said, if we solved one thing today, what would make this a yes? The account didn't close in that moment. Something better happened. The room changed shape. People exhaled. You were no longer trapped in your head. You were in the room again. Your brain loves to complete loops. Overthinking is a loop starved of closure. The amygdala flags threat. Your RS fetches more data that looks like the threat, and your prefrontal cortex gets mugged by adrenaline. The fog cutter interrupts that supply chain. The breath slows the body's alarm. The phrase, "I'm having the thought that," returns you to observer mode, and the two questions give your attention a legitimate finish line. You're not fighting your biology. You're recruiting it. Now install your second tool, the 90-second weather rule. Emotions arrive like weather. Dense clouds, crosswind, brief storm. Neuroscientists have observed that the chemical cascade of an emotion will naturally peak and subside within roughly 90 seconds if you don't fuel it with a story. That's your practice window. When a wave hits, you set a mental timer and do nothing heroic except feel the raw data. Sensations, not sentences. Heat at the cheeks, flutter at the ribs, tightness under the collarbone. If your mind tries to announce the news, "They hate me, this will ruin everything," answer, "Weather first, words later." For 90 seconds, you become a meteorologist of your inner sky. When the timer ends, you revisit the smallest wise action from the fog cutter. The storm may not vanish, but you'll notice there's now space to steer. Take a breath and do a live rep. Inhale for 4 and notice the edges of your nostrils. Hold for 4 and feel your heartbeat tapping like a soft knock at the door. Exhale for 6 and let your shoulders drop half an inch. Scan from forehead to toes like warm sunlight moving down your body. Name one neutral object in your peripheral vision. The way the mug's handle arcs, a crease in the fabric, the scuff on the floor, and let its plainness anchor you. You've just given your attention a non-problem to hold. That reduces the fuel available for catastrophic storytelling. Overthinking thrives in abstraction. It despises specifics. So you will train specificity with a tabletop check. Imagine placing the situation on a table. What is actually on the table that a camera could verify? What is inferred, predicted, guessed, mind read? You can keep guessing, but you cannot keep guessing without labeling it as guessing. The act of labeling brings the prefrontal cortex online and reminds your RAS what to search for. Evidence, not fiction. Tonight, when the loop returns, write a single sentence that begins, "On the table is," and end it with one observable fact. Then write, "Not on the table is," and end it with your loudest guess. The separation is humility in action. It protects your decisions from the fog of certainty theater. In a dim kitchen at 11:47 p.m., you stare at an unsent text that reads like a courtroom defense. Your shoulders ache from the day. The refrigerator hums. You can feel warmth pooled in your palms and a sour fizz in your gut. You run the 90-second weather rule and do nothing but notice the sensations crest and flatten. 90 seconds later, the urge to send a manifesto has cooled by a few degrees. You run the fog cutter. I'm having the thought that if I don't respond perfectly, they'll leave. What matters in the next 10 minutes? Preserving dignity and a clear next step. What is the smallest wise action? I value this. Can we talk tomorrow between 5 and 6? You send that single sentence. The night air at the open window feels a shade cooler against your face. The game you were playing, predict the future using panic, loses its grip. You didn't solve your life. You solved for the next inch. The science is a servant, not a lecture. The 4-4-6 breath steadies your heart rhythm, which steadies your electrical patterns, which steadies your thoughts. The distancing phrase recruits meta-awareness, turning a thought from a tyrant into a passing card you can place on the table. The 90-second practice respects how hormones spike and settle. In plain language, you stop pouring gasoline on sparks and start letting sparks be sparks until they burn out. Then you move your hand purposefully, like a craftsman returning to the next measured cut. Notice your posture now. Stack your head over your spine like a book on a shelf. Let your tongue rest on the roof of your mouth and feel how that releases the jaw. Sense the texture of the fabric on your thigh, the slight temperature shift between your wrist and your forearm, the weight of gravity along your calves. These tiny check-ins are not distractions. They're stake lines in the ground of the present, something solid you can hold while the mind tries to drag you into drafts of a future that hasn't arrived. There is a deeper move you'll practice across this program: identity before strategy. When you overthink, you accidentally merge with your thoughts and treat them as commands. The identity turn is simple and radical. You are the awareness, not the emotion. You are the observer behind the weather, not the weather itself. From that stance, you can be scared and still choose, uncertain and still act, imperfect and still proud. Confidence becomes less about knowing the outcome and more about trusting your next inch. Tomorrow, the same triggers will try to recruit you. A delay in someone's reply, an ambiguous tone, a fast heartbeat after coffee that your brain interprets as danger. You'll meet them with a trained sequence instead of a spiral. Fog cutter. Breathe 4-4-6. I'm having the thought that. Ask the two questions. Take the smallest wise action. Weather rule. Feel the raw sensations for 90 seconds without adding plot. Tabletop check. Separate facts from guesses with one sentence each. These are not chores. They are levers that change your brain's tendencies through repetition. Neuroplasticity is your ally. Every rep is a stitch in a new default. Before you sleep, give your RAS a mission. Whisper, "Show me the next inch I can do with calm." Your brain will keep searching while you rest. And because you named calm as a criterion, the search results filter out drama. In the morning, you'll find the inch waiting, a question to ask, a call to make, a draft to send, a plan to simplify. Overthinking will still knock. You'll answer with brevity and breath, with awareness and a measured move. That's how clear choices are built, 1 inch at a time, repeated until they look like a life. Take one more slow breath. Feel the world widen by a fingertip's width. Let the quiet in your chest be enough for now. You are not behind. You're just beginning to steer. Ready for part 2? You said continue chosen. Audiobooks Test 1, Tanpa File, said thought for 30s. Overthinking feeds on decisions that stay blurry. You tiptoe around a choice as if it were a sleeping animal that might wake and bite. So the choice grows teeth in your imagination. Tonight you install a way to meet choices before they swell into monsters. The tool is decision triage. Give it a seat beside you, like a calm medic at a field tent who knows which wound needs a bandage and which, in truth, is just a scratch. The medic does not dramatize, the medic sorts. Your mind can, too. In a low, grounded voice, you ask 3 filters that cut through the fog. Is this choice reversible? Is it low cost? Is it near term? If a choice is reversible, low cost, and near term, it is a training weight, not a life sentence. You act in the next minute. If it fails, you pivot. If any answer is no, you buy yourself a small slab of structure and use a second tool to think cleanly. The rule prevents you from spending 6 hours on a button you can swap in 6 seconds. Your chest may tighten as you hear this, imagining all the choices you've delayed. Let the breath test the space you have. Inhale to 4 and feel your ribs widen like doors on quiet hinges. Hold for 4 and notice how your heart's tap becomes less frantic when you greet it instead of scolding it. Exhale for 6 and feel the heat at your cheeks soften by a degree. Bring attention to the temperature of your palms, the way air cools the thin skin between thumb and index finger. You are not punishing yourself for past spirals. You are learning the physics of them so you can step to the side. Decision triage pairs with a second protocol, the 3-perspective reframe. When you can't see a path, it's usually because you're staring from one locked angle. Your reticular activating system keeps fetching evidence that matches the angle you've chosen, without noticing you didn't choose it on purpose. The 3-perspective reframe gives your RAS a new instruction. Perspective 1 is you now, the person inside your pulse and preference. Perspective 2 is you from next week, the person who has already lived through the outcome and can whisper one practical note back across time. Perspective 3 is the trusted observer, someone you respect for clarity, not comfort. You ask what they would do if they had your values and facts. You don't ask them in real life. You ask them in clean imagination, which the brain treats like a rehearsal. Your prefrontal cortex loves this. It regains blood flow when given a structured mental sandbox rather than a courtroom of catastrophes. When you phrase the question this way, what does next week me advise for the next inch? What would my trusted observer do in the next hour? You shrink the problem to behavior you can execute, not identity you must defend. A story. You're in a co-working space that smells faintly of coffee and printer. The app you're building needs a pricing page by Friday. 2 teammates argue about tiers, your jaw starts to set, and your brain begins its favorite gymnastic routine: predict churn, conjure tweets, hear imaginary investors sigh. You can feel the weight of your laptop pressing into the heels of your hands. Your neck goes rigid like a too tight rope. You step outside to the stairwell and run decision triage. Is the choice reversible? Yes, you can change a price. Is it low cost? At your scale? Yes, there's no ad campaign locked in. Is it near term? Yes, the page goes live in 2 days. The medic in your mind nods. This is a training weight. You run the 3-perspective reframe. You now wants the perfect answer. Next week. You says, ship a simple tier, watch behavior, adjust next Wednesday. Your trusted observer, imagine a mentor known for clean calls, says, pick the simplest default that matches your value promise and set a review date. You walk back in and say, we're shipping 1 tier with a 14-day trial. We'll review metrics next Wednesday at 10. The room doesn't cheer. It calms. Your shoulders drop an inch. The page ships. A week later, with real data, the conversation becomes evidence-led rather than ego-led. Overthinking might protest that this is reckless. The science says it's responsible. Cognitive load is finite. Your working memory can hold only a handful of chunks at once. When you clog it with phantom futures, the dorsal anterior cingulate fires that something is wrong, and the amygdala shoves more urgency into the system. Decision triage reduces load by removing low-stakes loops. The three-perspective reframe recruits lateral networks that become available when the threat light dims. By acting on reversible, low-cost, near-term choices quickly, you free bandwidth for the choices that deserve deliberation. This is not impulsivity, it's precision about where thinking helps and where thinking harms. Set a micro-drill tonight called 1-minute shipping. Choose one decision that meets the medic's 3 S's. Whisper, reversible, low-cost, near-term. Exhale to 6. Ask the 2 reframe questions. Pick the smallest wise action that completes the loop and complete it inside 60 seconds. If your brain complains, you nod and thank it. Then you ship anyway. The point is not to be right, it's to teach your nervous system that you can act without being trapped by the theater of certainty. Train now with small weights so heavier choices feel familiar later. Pause for a body check. Feel the chair support your hips. Imagine the structure beneath you as a quiet engineer. Notice the fabric along your collarbone, the subtle difference in temperature at the crook of your elbow, the way the tongue rests when you let the jaw loosen. Hear the farthest sound you can find, maybe a car 2 streets away, or the thin hiss of air through a vent, and let that sound mark the edges of a bigger world than the one between your ears. Your attention is learning to land where it's useful. Sometimes the decision is not a product tier. Sometimes it's a text you've rewritten 5 times. The 3-perspective reframe shines here. You now wants to protect your image. Next week, you wants to be able to look back without flinching. Your trusted observer wants you to act in line with values you claim when no one watches. In a kitchen warmed by a lamp's yellow pool, you feel a tide of heat rise at your throat as your thumb hovers over send. You give yourself a 90-second weather window, feel the heart's drumming, watch the fizz at your solar plexus ride up and roll back. Then you ask the reframe questions and write only what fits both truth and dignity. You send 2 sentences, not 20. You place the phone face down and put your palm on your chest. The silence after is not empty, it's breathable. To deepen this skill, install the clean sheet ritual. On a blank page, paper if you can, to recruit slow motor circuits, you write a header called Wiser Me Speaks. You breathe 4 to 4-6, then lengthen to a 4-7-8 pattern for 2 cycles to tip your parasympathetic system further. You date the page and ask in ink, what does next week me already know that I can't see from inside this hallway? You answer with no flourish, just a practical sentence. Then a second header called Trusted Observer Notes. You invite your chosen mind into the room and write one directive you can do in 15 minutes or less. The page is not for poetry. It's for marching orders you'll follow before your fear gets back from lunch. This is how you train your RAS to look for cues you value: calm, clarity, smallest wise action, so it can fetch matching evidence without constant supervision. You might find yourself resisting, arguing that your choices feel irreversible, high cost, far-reaching. Some are. The medic knows that, too. When any of the 3 filters is a true no, you don't freeze. You shift to a slower gear using a container called the 2-window deliberation. You give the decision 2 windows of focused thought separated by sleep. In the first window, you gather only what a camera could verify and the constraints you cannot change. You do not forecast from fear. You end that window by naming the criteria your future self will judge as wise. Values met, risks capped, recovery paths ready. Then you sleep, because sleep rebalances the emotional charge by letting your amygdala stop shouting into a microphone. In the second window, you run the 3-perspective reframe and choose. The delay is not procrastination, it's design. The brain consolidates, prunes, and sorts during sleep. You wake with cleaner edges to the problem. Most people try to debug the code while the program is still running hot. You will let it cool. Take a breath. Feel the air at the rims of your nostrils again, cool on the way in, warmer on the way out. Circle your shoulders once and let the muscles at the base of your neck descend. Sense the weight of your feet. Press your toes into the floor as if rooting into soil. The more your body participates, the less your mind has to shout. In a quieter scene, you're on a Sunday walk under a canopy of trees. Your brain keeps looping through a career move. You've read 15 posts, messaged 3 friends, and drafted a manifesto in notes. The sunlight blinks through leaves like a metronome. You stop at a bench and run decision triage. Is it reversible? The move feels heavy, but the first step you're debating, taking a meeting, is reversible. Is it low cost? Time, yes, a small block. Is it near term? The meeting is this week. The medic smiles. Training weight. You run the reframe. You now wants the perfect script. Next week, you says, book it. Prepare 2 questions. Your trusted observer says, gather signal without making an identity announcement. You take out your phone, feel its cool slab in your hand, and send a simple note. I'd love to learn more. Are you free Thursday at 4? The canopy above rustles. Your breath deepens. The decision shrinks back to its real size. Neuroscience, kept simple, backs your shift. When you impose a small, time-bound action, you engage the brain's task-positive network and lower default mode rumination. When you imagine a respected other advising you stimulate social cognition circuits that often cut through your ego's noise. When you write by hand, you recruit sensory motor integration that slows cognition enough to notice assumptions. When you sleep between windows, you reduce amygdala reactivity and increase prefrontal coherence. Translated, the tools aren't spiritual slogans. They are levers that move your biology into positions where wisdom is easier to reach. You will forget. That's fine. Forgetting is part of learning. What matters is returning. When you notice you're trapped in the theater again, you don't scold yourself for buying a ticket. You step into the lobby and breathe. You run the medic's 3 questions. You consult you from next week and the quiet genius you respect. You act on the smallest wise piece and leave the rest for tomorrow's window. Each time, the path back shortens by a step. Each time, the body spends less time clenched and more time available. Right now, practice a live rep. Bring to mind a small decision you've delayed for too long. Notice how your shoulders creep and how your mouth dries a touch. Inhale for 4 and feel the air graze the back of your throat. Hold for 4 and notice your belly soften. Exhale for 6 and imagine fog evaporating off a lake. Ask, reversible, low cost, near term? If yes, ask you from next week for 1 sentence of counsel. Then ask your trusted observer for 1 directive. Do the smallest wise action before this minute ends, even if it's drafting the first sentence of an email or placing 1 object in a bag by the door. Feel the impulse to delay rise and crest like a tiny wave, then choose anyway. The sensation that follows is not fireworks. It's a clean click. Keep the identity turn in view. You are not your indecision. You are the awareness noticing indecision and the hands that can move. You are the observer behind the weather and the person who can plant a flag in the ground of now. Your confidence will not come from predicting outcomes with godlike accuracy. It will come from trusting that you can meet whatever arrives with breath, triage, and reframing, then correct fast if needed. This is how steady people are built, not in a single vow, but in hundreds of quiet, reversible steps that teach the nervous system what safe action feels like. Before bed, run one more piece of quiet engineering. Sit at the edge of the mattress where the sheets feel cool against your calves. Put one hand on your heart and one on your belly. Whisper, "Tomorrow, show me one training weight decision and the smallest wise action." Your RAS takes notes while you sleep. In the morning, the answer presents itself disguised as something almost too ordinary. A call, a draft, a calendar block, a question. You will recognize it by the absence of drama. You will act before the theater opens. Walk into your night with this knowledge. You don't need to tame every storm to move. You need to know which clouds are mist and which require shelter, which choices are heavy, and which are practice. You have a medic who sorts. You have a counsel who advises. You have a body that steadies when invited. And you have a self that watches the weather and stays bigger than it. That self is who moves you forward. Ready for part 3, you said? Continue chosen audiobooks test. 1. Tanpa File said, Thought for 50s Overthinking tries to solve uncertainty with more thinking, the way a car stuck in mud tries to escape by pressing the gas. The wheels spin, the smell of rubber rises, the rut deepens. Tonight you will learn to put boards under the tires. Boards are not more thoughts. Boards are small sources of real signal. When your brain gets signal, it relaxes its guessing habit. You stop auditioning catastrophes and start collecting data you can trust. The aim is not to outthink your thoughts, but to give your nervous system something truer to hold than fear's projections. Feel the air on your upper lip as you breathe in, a cool brush before it disappears. Notice the warmth cupped behind your cheekbones. Roll your shoulders once and let the blade slide down your back. The body believes what it senses. When you give it steady, simple inputs, the mind often follows like a dog on a loose leash. This is not mystic. It's your vagus nerve telling your stress circuitry, we are here and here is survivable. Your first tool tonight is the S2S, Signal to Story Scan. Overthinking fuses story to signal until they feel identical. The scan separates them so you can respond to what exists rather than what echoes. The sequence is swift. You set a 1-minute timer. For the first 20 seconds, you inventory signal, raw sensations in your body, and camera-level facts in the world. Heat at the throat, tingling at the wrists. The email contains the sentence, "Let's revisit next week." For the next 20 seconds, you note the story your mind is producing and label it as a hypothesis rather than a verdict. Maybe they're rejecting me. For the final 20 seconds, you ask one question that turns the hypothesis into research. What small piece of data would confirm or disconfirm this? Then you take the smallest wise action to get that data, often a clarifying question, a calendar check, or a tiny probe. You are transforming a courtroom into a lab. The science bridge is simple. Your reticular activating system is a searchlight. If you've silently tagged the world as hostile, the RAS fetches matching evidence and discards the rest. When you say hypothesis, you retag the situation as uncertain rather than doomed. The RAS widens its intake. Blood returns to your planning centers. The scan is not about feelings being wrong. It's about feelings not being the only instrument you use to fly the plane. A story. It's 3:06 p.m. You see a message from your manager. Can we talk at 4? Your chest ripples with heat and your mouth goes ashy dry. You can hear the office air conditioner gasp on, a distant fan that makes everything feel colder and sharper. Your mind writes a headline. This is the meeting where everything ends. You run the S2S, first 20 seconds, signal, and facts. Palms damp, breath shallow in the top inch of your chest. The message has no tone, just 9 words, and the calendar shows a weekly check-in moved up by a day. Next 20, story labeled hypothesis. Maybe I missed something and I'm in trouble. Final 20, what would confirm or disconfirm? You skim your sent mail and see you delivered the draft on time. You open the shared doc. There's a new comment asking for a case study example. At 4:00, your manager's first sentence is, I want to pitch this sooner. Can you prioritize a quick case? The meeting is not a guillotine. It's a sprint. Because you separated signal and story, you walked in with useful energy, not dread. Do a live rep now. Let your eyes land on something neutral in the room, the shine on a doorknob, the thread in a sleeve, a tiny scratch on the desk. Inhale gently and feel the air gather just under the collarbones. Exhale longer and feel your shoulders drop a finger's width. Name 2 sensations in your body and 1 fact that a camera would capture. Then whisper, my story is maybe. Ask, what small piece of data would help? Often the answer is a single sentence. What outcome would make this a yes? Or can you clarify what you need most? When you turn a story into a study, you reclaim the steering wheel. The second tool is the probe, then plan loop. Overthinking loves to plan without evidence, as if drawing a map without first walking the street. The loop flips the order. You design a 10-minute probe that touches the real conditions of the problem. Then you plan based on what your probe reveals. Probes are tiny, safe, and specific. They're not commitments to an identity. They are invitations to reality to answer you back. Your brain trusts what it has touched. Probes give it something to touch. Your biology, again, is an ally. A brief, concrete task engages your task-positive network and dials down default mode rumination. A small success releases enough dopamine to mark the behavior as worth repeating, which lays myelin on that pathway and makes it easier next time. Translate that into ordinary language. 10 minutes of testing can save 10 hours of imagining. Another story. You've been spinning about whether your side project is good enough to share. It's 11:09 p.m., the blue glow of your screen cool on your forearms. Your jaw is set tight. Your thumb keeps hovering over a post button that feels like a cliff edge. You design a probe. You write a 7-sentence version and send it to 3 people who have given useful feedback before, asking one specific question. What's the clearest part and what's the muddiest? You can feel your heart flutter as the messages send, a light bird behind your ribs. You set a timer for 10 minutes and go wash dishes, the warm water, a simple orbit for your hands to follow. When you return, 2 replies already contain the same note. The third arrives in the morning with the same pattern. Now your plan is easy. Rewrite the muddy part. Share again. The probe collapsed a month of mind reading into a few hours of signal. Build your micro practice called 10-minute truth. When a loop spins, ask, what probe would bring back 1 piece of truth? Keep it small enough to finish before your courage resets. A single question to a stakeholder, a 5-person test, a draft shared with one trusted reader, a calendar block titled Probe, so future you remembers what present you meant. The loop ends with a review. What did reality say? What's the smallest wise adjustment? You are not guessing, you are conversing with the world. Pause and breathe in a physiologic sigh. Small inhale, another short sip of air on top, then a long unforced exhale through pursed lips. Feel how the exhale drapes across your chest like a warm cloth. Notice the weight of your feet, the temperature difference between the backs of your hands and your palms. Hear the faintest noise you can find, a pipe ticking, the thin hiss of air. These simple anchors are your carrying handles. You can lift heavier choices when your grip is good. There is a way to combine the two tools into what you'll call the researcher's stance. S2S gives you a clean slate. Signal here, story there. Probe, then plan gives you a next move that extracts truth with low risk. Together they change your identity from defender to discoverer. Defenders must be right. Discoverers must be curious. Curiosity, in a nervous system, is a synonym for safety. When you are curious, your muscles unclench and your sight widens. That widening is the literal window through which better options appear. Watch how this works in relationships, where overthinking often hides in polite costumes. You're holding your phone. A 2-word reply lands. All good. Your chest squeezes. The words read like a door closing. You feel the skin on your neck prickle, a little burn under the collar. S2S first. Signal is tightness, warmth, widening eyes. Fact is 2 words, full stop. Story labeled hypothesis. Maybe they're annoyed with me. 10-minute truth next. Probe by sending a gentle, specific question. Reading tone is hard by text. Do you need anything more from me here? Or schedule a 5-minute call with a single agenda. I want to make sure I understood you right. The probe is not a demand for reassurance. It's a request for clarity. If they're fine, you stop burning calories on fiction. If they're not, you bring care to a real place rather than shadowboxing. Either way, you exit the theater where you play all roles alone. A deeper practice emerges called STEADY. Sense, tag, experiment, assess, decide, you. Sense what is present without translation. Tag stories as hypotheses. Experiment with a small probe. Assess what reality said. Decide the smallest wise action. You. Remember, you are the awareness conducting this sequence, not the raw electricity passing through it. STEADY is a posture, not a perfection metric. On bad days, you crawl through the letters. On good days, you run. The point is movement that respects truth. You might ask, what if I can't get data quickly? Then you run a variation called 2-sided journal. On the left side of a page labeled Signal, you collect only what a camera or microphone would record. On the right side labeled Story, you write the hypothesis your mind prefers. Underneath, you write the smallest question a real person could answer that would test the story. You schedule when you will ask it. Closing the journal becomes the start of relief, because relief often begins when you give your questions a date rather than treating them like weather you live under. Your RAS, grateful for instructions, begins scanning for real cues instead of doom crumbs. A scene to ground this. Saturday morning, a cafe that smells like citrus and steam. You consider asking for a raise. The table leaves a faint chill through your forearms. Your heart has that fast, fizzy quality that reads like danger. The story says, if I ask, I'll be seen as greedy. S2S, signal is fizz, cool forearms, the foam in your cup dissolving into a beige mirror. Facts are your performance. Feedback is strong, and the market rate is higher than your pay. 10-minute truth. You book a 15-minute meeting titled Compensation Context, and you ask your manager one question. What criteria do you use to evaluate raises? The answer gives you a ladder. Even if the answer is not what you want today, you replace fog with a path. The body appreciates paths. The fizz settles to a hum. You walk home with a plan instead of a phantom. We'll keep the identity thread visible. You are the researcher, not the rumor. You are the awareness that can separate signal from story and collect your own evidence when your mind wants to borrow someone else's fear. Overthinking tries to make you pick a side, panic or perfection. Research doesn't pick sides. It pursues truth. That shift in identity, defender to discoverer, will save you more hours than any hack. It changes how you speak to yourself, less cross-examiner, more field guide. Notice your breathing. Without forcing, let the inhale arrive low, expanding the belly a finger's breadth. Let the exhale lengthen until it feels like sliding a drawer closed. Feel the fabric on your thigh, the contact where your back meets the chair. Look for one color in the room and let your eyes rest there a breath longer than usual. Your mind is learning that the present is safe enough to be measured. There will be times you misread your own scans. That's expected. Calibration takes reps. When a probe returns a result that stings, give yourself a 90-second weather window before you plan. The chemicals, adrenaline, cortisol, must crest and settle. You breathe, sense the heat in your cheeks, the buzz at your ribs, the way your knees feel heavy on the chair. After the weather passes, you run assess and decide. If the signal is unpleasant but true, you have already proven you can survive knowing it. Confidence is not built by stacking compliments. It is built by surviving truths and continuing. To practice in miniature, run the 3-2-1 S2S micro drill twice today. 3 sensations, 2 facts, 1 hypothesis, followed by one 10-minute probe that touches reality. Do it in a low-stakes moment, like clarifying a calendar time or testing a paragraph with a friend before publishing. The brain respects small, honest wins. It pays attention to what repeatedly reduces suffering. In a fluorescent hallway outside a conference room, Maya, remember her, felt the heat rise in her face when a client lobbed a vague objection. The old script would have been a monologue assembled by panic. Instead, she placed a hand against the cool drywall, ran S2S silently, tagged her story as maybe, and then probed with a single sentence. If we solve just one concern today, which one would unlock a yes? The client answered without drama. The team worked the real problem instead of wrestling shadows. After, in the elevator, Maya noticed the beat in her chest was firm but not wild. She smiled at the mirror's dim reflection and thought, not a hero, just a researcher. As you close this session, consider giving your RAS a new nightly instruction called the Fetch List. Whisper, tomorrow, show me signals I can measure and an experiment I can run. The searchlight will tilt toward what fits. You'll come across a comment that is actually helpful rather than a spiral trigger, an opening that invites a question rather than a shutdown, a 10-minute window where you can test rather than ruminate. It will feel like coincidence at first. It is not. It is your nervous system honoring the tags you set. One last breath. Light in, soft through the nose. Long out, as if fogging a cold window. Let your shoulders hang like clothes on a line. Feel the floor sturdy under your feet. Remember who you are underneath the noise. You are the awareness, not the emotion. You are the researcher, not the rumor, and you are the person who can choose to touch reality, then choose again. Ready for part 4? You said, continue. Chosen Audiobooks Test 1, Tanpa File, said, Thought 431 has, Overthinking has a narrator. It speaks fast, it loves absolutes, and it pretends to be you. It says always and never. It flicks through highlight reels of past mistakes like a late-night channel surfer, and it sneaks catastrophes in the voice of common sense. Tonight, you'll learn how to change the narrator without arguing for hours. You will not muzzle the mind. You will become the director who chooses which microphone is live. The tool is called the Switchboard method. Imagine a wall of cables and glowing bulbs. Every thought that arrives plugs itself into one of 3 ports: alarm, advice, or artifact. Alarms are body-first warnings: heat under the collarbone, a jolt in the gut, a sudden narrowness in sight. Advice is workable information dressed as worry, real constraints, hints about values, signals that something needs care. Artifacts are echoes from old rooms, habits of fear that no longer fit the facts. When you run the switchboard, you stop letting everything scream at once. You route each voice where it belongs. Feel your breath arrive low, as if inflating a quiet bellows under your ribs. Inhale to 4, hold for 4, exhale for 6. Notice the cool air at the tip of your nose and the warmer air that leaves. Roll your jaw gently so the hinges soften. Place your palm on your sternum and sense the subtle lift of each inhale. Your body is the first dashboard. It tells you which port to check. Sudden heat and tunnel vision. That's likely an alarm. You regulate the body first, then think. A steady gnaw that repeats across days? Probably advice. It wants a plan. A grand old story with absolute language and no new evidence. Artifact. You label it as history passing through a present doorway. Science makes this simple. The amygdala sets off an alarm to keep you alive, not to keep you accurate. If you treat every alarm as a verdict, your reticular activating system will drag the room for proof that matches panic. When you tag a signal as alarm, you run a regulation sequence before you engage logic. The sequence is the body lock release, 2 cycles of a physiologic sigh. Small inhale, small sip, long exhale, followed by a shoulder circle and a 5-second visual sweep of the room from left to right. That sweep resets neural circuits that widen attention. It tells the brain, we are not trapped in a tunnel. Only then do you invite the prefrontal cortex back to work. Advice becomes actionable when the body is not drowning. A story. You're sitting in your car outside a dinner you promised to attend. Through the windshield, lights smear in soft halos on wet asphalt. Your phone buzzes with a message you read twice, as if the second reading could make it kinder. Your chest tightens, and the familiar script starts. They're disappointed. You've messed this up. You run the switchboard. You name the heat at your sternum and the prickle at your scalp as alarm. You release the body with 2 sighs, shoulder circles, a slow sweep of the parking lot's quiet geometry. The world widens by a few inches. Then you notice the repeating thought beneath the sting. You want to be respected and clear, not late and apologetic. That's advice, not drama. The artifact shows up too, a 12-year-old memory of an argument where you were told you're unreliable. You smile at that ghost. Artifact, you say out loud, kindly, like greeting a passing neighbor. Alarm regulated, advice identified, artifact archived. You walk inside and offer a simple sentence. Thanks for waiting. Here's how I plan to make up for the delay. The night moves on. not perfect but clean. With the switchboard in place, install a second tool to change the narrator's script in real time. The emotional alchemy ladder. Emotions are weather, stories are forecasts. You can't stop clouds, but you can climb rungs that lift you above the fog. The rungs move in small, believable steps. First you notice fusion, the moment you and the emotion are the same thing. I am anxious. Then you shift to noticing. Anxiety is here. You name it without blame. Next you normalize. Bodies make weather. This is a legal sensation. Then you narrow. What matters in the next 10 minutes? Finally, you move. The smallest wise action that honors your values. You don't leap from panic to joy. You climb from panic to presence to precision. The ladder is not poetry. It is a sequence that reassigns blood flow back to the regions that steer and soothes the regions that shout. Run a live micro-ladder now. Find one tight place in your body. Maybe the skin under your eyes feels warm, or your stomach hums like carbonated water. Say, anxiety is here. Breathe 4, 4, 6 once. Say, bodies make weather. Ask, what matters in the next 10 minutes? Answer with a plain phrase. Finish a paragraph. Ask a clarifying question. Drink water. Then do that one action inside 60 seconds. Feel the slight click that arrives when action follows attention. That click is the chemistry of relief. Language is the lever arm under this ladder. Your inner narrator works in phrases that train your RAS. Absolutes train it to find absolutes. Precision trains it to fetch specifics. You will practice the 5-word window. Whenever the mind launches into a 10-sentence prophecy, you reduce your next message to 5 words that name a value and an action. Clarity matters. Ask for timing. Respect matters. Set a boundary. Health matters. Schedule the test. The restriction is not a game. It is a way to force your narrator to say only what it can carry with dignity. As you repeat the practice, your inner voice loses its taste for panic theater and gains a taste for brevity. Feel the chair supporting your thighs. Let your shoulder blades slide down your back as if they were warm stones settling into sand. Notice one sound far away and one sound near, the distant murmur of traffic and the soft private rustle of your clothes. Sensation anchors keep your narrator honest. While you feel the world, you are less likely to let a sentence invent it. You will also install a phrase that disables permanence. Until now. The old narration says, I always freeze in conflict. You answer, until now, I often froze. Now, I run the switchboard and the ladder. The 2 extra words unhook your identity from a habit and invite plasticity. Brains love time-bound stories. They treat until now as a boundary and allow a new storyline to be rehearsed. This is not an affirmation in glitter. It is a literal retagging of your behavior as trainable. Another story. Morning light slides across your desk like a slow spill of milk. Your inbox contains a terse reply to a proposal, and your stomach dips the way an elevator does when it moves too fast. The narrator lunges for the microphone. They hated it. You blew it. Say something brilliant now. You place a hand on your chest and run the switchboard. Alarm first. You breathe. Sweep the room with your eyes. Feel the weight of your feet. Advice next. Hidden inside the sting is a need. Clarify criteria. Artifact 2. The memory of a teacher who praised you only when you were perfect. You label it and let it walk past. Then you step onto the alchemy ladder. Anxiety is here. Bodies make weather. What matters in the next 10 minutes? A respectful question, not a defense. You type, thanks for the quick read. If we solved one concern first, which would make this a yes? You hit send and feel the residual heat in your cheeks recede. The narrator loses volume. You become a person in a room doing a thing, not a doomed hero inside a myth. Underneath all this is the physics of attention. Attention is a beam. When the beam hits catastrophic language, your nervous system ramps up and your options narrow. When the beam hits precise language, your nervous system slows and your options widen. This is why the 5-word window works and why, until now, loosens the knots. You train your beam to land where movement is possible. Movement, even tiny, is how confidence is built. Brains record motion as evidence that you can influence your world. Influence reduces helplessness. Helplessness is gasoline on the fire of overthinking. Add a nightly practice called the line edit. Before bed, you write one paragraph of the raw narration around a loop that visited you today. No censor, no polish. Then you apply a quiet edit, using the switchboard tags in the margins. A for alarm, V for advice, F for artifact, F for fossil, if you prefer. You keep only the advice lines and convert them into 5-word windows, and one smallest wise action for tomorrow morning. You finish by writing one sentence that begins with "until now" and ends with the new sequence you'll run. The line edit trains your brain to distinguish between voltage and value. Voltage is the surge, value is the information. Check in with your body. Sense the temperature difference between your palms and the backs of your hands. Notice the subtle pressure where your clothes touch your shoulders. Let your tongue rest on the roof of your mouth to release the jaw. These small acts are not decoration. They're circuit breakers that make the switchboard easier to operate. Sometimes the narrator is loudest in relationships where stakes feel braided with identity. You'll use a conversation micro-protocol called Facts, Values, Request. When you feel the spin begin, you name one camera-level fact, you name one value you both likely share, and you make one clean, present-tense request. It sounds like this. The meeting started at 10 and we began at 10:15. I care about respect for the team's time. Can we agree to start on the dot next week? The structure prevents you from litigating the entire history of lateness and keeps you out of character attacks, which are artifact territory. So you can stand on a shared value and move 1 inch. The protocol dovetails with the latter, because it moves you from noticing to action without pretending you are a robot. On a couch that smells faintly of detergent, you and someone you love debate a plan that matters. You feel heat climb your neck, your breath skims the top of your chest. The narrator wants a monologue about all the times you were misunderstood. You choose the switchboard. Alarm gets 2 breaths and a visual sweep. Advice says, we both want a weekend that feels restful. Artifact whispers old scenes. You label them and let them pass. Then you climb the ladder and use Facts, Values, Request. We've had 3 busy Saturdays in a row. I want rest and connection. Can we make Sunday morning just for us? No errands until noon? The room doesn't explode into applause. It relaxes. The conversation becomes about a block of time instead of about whether you are lovable. The narrator loses its courtroom and has to sit in a chair like everyone else. When the mind argues that labeling artifacts is denial, remember the tabletop check from earlier work. You are not banning history. You're refusing to let it ghostwrite today's script. If an artifact keeps arriving with the posture of advice, you can schedule a separate window to honor it properly. a therapy session, a deeper journaling practice, a walk where the aim is remembrance instead of decision. You respect the past without letting it run the switchboard during live operations. To bind these tools into muscle memory, create the 2-minute narrator reset. It goes like this. You run one cycle of 4-4-6 breathing. You label alarm, advice, artifact out loud in a whisper. You climb 2 rungs of the Alchemy ladder, naming and normalizing, and you speak one 5-word window into the room. Clarity matters. Ask for timing. Then you take that action, set a timer, and practice twice today in low stakes, so that in high stakes your body reaches for it automatically. Neural pathways thicken where the reps go. Notice your breath again. Feel the gentle pressure of gravity along your calves and the way your feet occupy space on the floor. Look at your environment and name one color that is not your favorite and still earns its place. Let that small act remind your brain that the world contains more than the storyline it currently favors. Intrusive thoughts quiet when given broader context. Context is the mind's equalizer. Another scene. Late night, the city hums like a distant refrigerator. You're drafting an apology email that has swollen into a confession manifesto. Your eyes burn. Your shoulders sit like armor near your ears. The narrator says you must include every explanation to prove your worth. You step back and whisper, "Switchboard." Alarm gets breath and the visuals sweep. Advice says the only thing that matters tonight is repairing the thin thread of trust. A novel will not help. Artifact tries to recite the old law that you are only safe when you over-explain. You lower its mic. Ladder. Anxiety is here. Bodies make weather. What matters in 10 minutes? A short, honest sentence and a request to talk. You write, "I'm sorry I dropped the ball today. I value our work. Can we take 10 minutes tomorrow at 2 to recalibrate?" You send it. The room stays quiet. Your chest lets go of a knot you didn't know you were cradling. You are not a mind at the mercy of its narrator. You are the one choosing which voice guides your hands. Keep the identity turned close. You are the selector, not the static. You are the awareness listening to multiple channels and choosing which to amplify. The old narrator will return. Habit is persistent. But you're not required to debate it to exhaustion. You root it. You climb a rung. You make one clean move. Each rep writes a marginal note in your brain's operating manual. When unsure, choose precision over prophecy, movement over monologue. Before sleep, give your RAS a script to fetch tomorrow. Whisper, "Show me which thoughts are alarms, which are advice, which are artifacts. Show me one rung I can climb and one 5-word window I can speak." Your searchlight will find places to practice in the wild, a message that benefits from facts, values, request, a meeting where the switchboard saves an hour, a private moment where the ladder keeps you human. Confidence will feel less like a pose and more like a quiet competence you trust. One last breath. Inhale through the nose. Feel the coolness sweep the inner bridge. Exhale slowly, as if fogging glass. Let your shoulders drop the last half-inch. Sense the gentle pulse at your wrists and the steady weight of your body in the room. The narrator is not gone. It has been given a job. You are here, bigger than the weather, clear enough to choose, steady enough to proceed. Ready for part 5? You said, "Continue chosen." Audiobooks test 1, Tanpa file, said, "Thought for 41s. Overthinking scatters your attention like a handful of seeds tossed on concrete. A dozen half starts, 5 open tabs, a nervous itch to just check one more thing. The mind argues that a broader view will protect you, but the sprawl steals the oxygen from any one flame. Tonight, you will build a container that protects clarity, not a mythical flow state that appears when the moon is right, an engineered field where one task can breathe. When a task can breathe, a choice can complete. When choices complete, confidence stops being a mood and becomes a memory your brain trusts. Before you build the field, you return to the body. Inhale for 4 and notice the faint coolness at the rims of your nostrils. Hold for 4 and feel the quiet weight of your tongue resting on the roof of your mouth. Exhale for 6 and picture dust settling in a shaft of light. Sense the temperature difference between your palms and the backs of your hands. Let your shoulder blades slide down as if they could melt into your back pockets. The field begins in your nervous system, not your calendar. Your first tool is the focus field protocol. It works like a tent you pitch around one intention. You choose one task, one context, one constraint. One task means the next inch, not the project's biography. One context means your environment matches the action. If you're writing, your surface holds only what belongs to writing. One constraint means time and rules, so the mind knows the game it is playing. You speak the protocol aloud in a low voice you trust. For the next 20 minutes, I am drafting the first page in this document with one tab, phone face down in another room. Then you begin a single tab sprint. The sprint has 3 guardrails: the chair lock, the parking lot, and the return word. The chair lock is simple. You do not stand up during the sprint because many urgent needs vanish when sitting. The parking lot is a single index card where you jot any stray thought that tries to hijack you. Call dentist, add chart, check quote, promising it a look after the timer. The return word is the noun at the center of your task. Introduction, contract, sketch, that you whisper whenever you feel the mind drift. The whisper is a breadcrumb trail back to the work. The science is plain. Attentional residue, the mental afterimage of the last task, costs you minutes every time you switch. The prefrontal cortex, your conductor, cannot cue all sections at once. It needs to choose a score. By imposing a context, you reduce the noise the conductor must ignore. The basal ganglia love repetition in one environment. They translate repeated sprints in the same chair at the same time of day into a habit that boots up with less friction. Dopamine doesn't just respond to accomplishment. It responds to progress your brain can measure. A 20-minute sprint seeds measurable progress, which increases the odds you'll return tomorrow. A story. In a tiny apartment where the walls hum with the neighbor's radio, your laptop stares back with a blank page titled Proposal, V12 Final. Your heart flutters with the carbonated fizz that suggests something is wrong, though nothing is on fire. You keep checking the news, then a message thread, then a file with old notes, as if the correct answer might be hiding behind a different window. You decide to pitch the tent. You clear the desk until only the laptop and a single pen remain. You set a timer for 20 minutes. You speak. One task, one context, one constraint. The phone goes on airplane mode across the room, chair lock. You start typing ugly scaffolding and label gaps with the letters TK, journalism's old tag for to come, instead of wandering into research. 3 minutes in, a thought sprints across the field. Add the case study from Q2. You write Q2 case study, parking lot, on your card and return your hands to the keys. 10 minutes in, panic whispers that the tone is wrong. You whisper your return word, introduction, and write the next crooked sentence. The timer lands. You exhale and feel a shallow heat release from your cheeks. You have a page. Not perfect, real. Your brain records the win. Pause and feel your seat bones on the chair, the quiet pressure where your thighs meet the cushion. Notice the air on the back of your neck, a thin, cool ribbon. Listen for the farthest sound you can find. These tiny measures tell your stress circuits there is a world outside the task, which paradoxically makes the task safer to enter. Your second tool tonight is the boundary gate. Overthinking thrives in open borders. People, platforms, and prompts can walk into your mind at any time, carrying urgency like a loud suitcase. The boundary gate is a 3-part door you install before you open anything that pulls attention. Purpose, window, and format. Purpose is a single sentence naming what you want from the interaction before it begins. Window is the time boundary you set as if you were booking a room. You enter and exit on schedule. Format is the channel that best fits your purpose. Many problems become smaller when you choose voice over text or a structured form over a wandering thread. You run the gate like a ritual. You speak your purpose, set the window on a visible timer, choose the format, and only then do you open the channel. If a message arrives outside a gate, it waits on your inbox island, a daily shore where you dock twice to process. Gate before you glance, gate before you reply, gate before you doom scroll. Your biology aligns with this. Variable ratio rewards, like unpredictable notifications, jackpot your dopamine, pulling you from whatever field you built. Each tug trains your RAS to look for novelty over value. The gate reverses the training by converting open loops into appointments. When your brain learns that answers live in windows rather than everywhere all at once, your amygdala dials down the must-check now siren. Another scene. It's 8:43 a.m. You promised yourself the focus field from 9 to 9:20. At 8:54, a message lands. Quick question. Your stomach does the micro drop of an elevator. Your fingers twitch toward the keyboard like they've been yanked by a string. The old move would be to peak, then fall into a thread, then watch the hour dissolve. You run the boundary gate. Purpose, clarify timeline for assets. Window, reply at 9:25 for 5 minutes. Format, voice memo to cut ping pong. You scribble those on a sticky note and return to your return word. At 9 SAR, you start the sprint. The message waits in its window. At 9:25, you send a 30-second voice note that asks one clean question and offers one precise next step. The thread closes in 2 exchanges rather than 12. Your shoulders soften by a half-inch. You did not chase your day. You designed it. Breathe. Inhale for 4 and feel your ribs widen sideways, not just forward. Hold for 4 and sense your heartbeat like a quiet knock at a door 2 rooms away. Exhale for 6 and imagine the floor taking 10% more of your weight. Look to the left and then to the right, slowly, letting your eyes pick up edges and corners. This lateral sweep widens your visual field and tells your midbrain you are not in a tunnel. You will pair these tools with a micro drill called the start line switch. Overthinking hates beginnings and worships edits. The switch removes the mythic pressure around starting by making the first 60 seconds a ritual. Open the object. Name the first noun. Lay one track. Open means the dock, the sketchpad, the calendar event. No browsing required. Name the first noun means you write a title that tells your hands what they're about to do. Lay one track means you produce one line that moves the thing forward. A topic sentence, a first brushstroke, a skeleton bullet you'll flesh later. You stop at 60 seconds on purpose, even if you want to continue, to teach your brain that starting is small and survivable. Later, you extend the session, but the ritual trains the door to swing. Here's the research bridge in plain language. Novelty and uncertainty can raise norepinephrine levels, which, past a threshold, blur the prefrontal cortex's ability to sequence steps. By preloading a fixed sequence for the first minute, you slide under the threshold. Once motion begins, the task-positive network spins up and provides enough momentum to carry you into deeper work. The switch is a kind tutor to a nervous system that treats begin as threat. A story from the kitchen table at night. The lamp casts a yellow ring. Outside, rain ticks against the window. You've been postponing a conversation deck because it must be clean. Every time you open the slides, your breath hitchhikes to the top of your chest. You decide to run the start line switch. Open the deck. Name the first noun. Agenda. Lay one track. 3 words that anchor the arc. You feel silly, almost insultingly simple, like tying your shoes before a race you haven't agreed to run. But something happens. Your shoulders drop a notch. You type the next line without asking permission from fear. The next night you repeat the switch and add a single-tab sprint. By Thursday, the deck exists. Not perfect. Present. The confidence you feel isn't pride in genius. It's relief that you can begin on command. Check your body again. Notice the skin at the base of your neck, cooler where air moves. Sense the subtle pressure of your clothing along your ribs. Hear the lowest sound in the room. These are ropes you can hold when your mind tries to drag you into the surf of endless options. You will encounter a saboteur that lives inside overthinking. The second arrow, your judgment about the first wobble. You miss one sprint and the narrator hurls a spear. See, you can't focus. You will carry the second arrow shield. It is a single sentence you speak the instant judgment arrives. That was a rep. The next rep starts now. The sentence redirects your RAS from autopsy to action. In brain terms, you stop rehearsing failure and begin rehearsing recovery. Confidence is not the absence of breaks. It is the speed of return. To stitch the focus field and boundary gate into habit, create a daily ritual called the field reset. At the end of your day, when the light outside softens and your brain wants to drift into review mode, you spend 3 minutes on paper. You write tomorrow's first focus field in 1 sentence with the time window and the return word. You write your 2 inbox island windows and 1 tough gate you'll need. Purpose, window, format. You place the index card face up on the desk where your eyes will land in the morning. Then you physically stage the context, close extra tabs, put the pen where your hand will land, lay the one document front and center. You're not relying on willpower. You're designing a runway, another everyday scene. The bus rattles. You stand with one hand looped through the cool strap above, the other wrapped around a folder that holds a messy draft. Your phone buzzes 3 times in a row. The mind lunges for the slot machine pull that a quick peek promises. You run the gate silently. Purpose, entertain during commute? No. Purpose, arrive with enough calm to run a sprint at 9. Window, reading only, 9 minutes until your stop. Format, paper, not phone. You pull the draft from the folder and edit 3 sentences with a pencil. Each mark a small click of progress. When you step off the bus, The air hits your face cool and bright. You feel taller by a centimeter for no grand reason other than you chose your channel instead of being chosen. Science, kept friendly. Your RAS learns from whatever you repeat. If you rehearse scattered checking, it will serve you more scattered checking. If you rehearse gated, purpose-led openings and bounded sprints, it will bring cues that match. Neuroplasticity isn't a slogan, it's a budget. You spend it with your rituals. The basal ganglia file, your evening field reset, under initiation pattern, making mornings smoother. The striatum loves predictable signals. Your return word becomes such a signal, a cue that flips the brain into work mode without an argument. Identity, once more, before we close. You're not a distracted person trying to borrow discipline. You are the architect of attention, practicing with materials your biology understands. You are the awareness that can pitch a tent around 1 inch of reality and invite your hands to move. When the old fog arrives with its carnival of options, you won't fight the carnival. You'll step into your field and close the flap. When the world knocks with a dozen pings, you won't exile the world. You'll open your gate on purpose and greet it like a host with clear hours. Take one more slow breath, inhale, and feel your ribs widen like doors on oiled hinges. Hold and notice the heart's steady tap down from earlier. Exhale and let your shoulders drop the last half inch. Look around the room and quietly name 3 edges: a tabletop, a window frame, a book spine. Let the edges remind you that boundaries are not prisons, they are shapes that allow beauty to exist. Tomorrow, your focus field will be the shape that allows your best effort to take form. Your boundary gate will be the door that keeps your mind a home, not a train station. You will start small, on time, on purpose. Tonight, write your field reset as a gift to morning you. 1 sentence, 1 window, 1 return word. Lay the index card where light will find it. When you sit down, the tent will already be half raised. The rest is just your breath and your hands moving like a steady tide in a small harbor, carrying 1 vessel at a time out toward the line where effort meets horizon. Ready for part 6? You said, continue. Chosen audiobooks test. 1. Tanpaphile said, Thought for 21s, overthinking sharpens its teeth on mistakes. 1 stumble becomes a prophecy, 1 awkward silence becomes a character judgment, and 1 rejected idea becomes a museum exhibit titled, Proof You Shouldn't Try. Shame pulls the fire alarm, and the whole building evacuates. You stand in the street, acting like this is the end of your lease. Tonight, you learn how to stay inside, crack a window, turn off the alarm, and fix what needs fixing without burning the place down. You will not wait to feel flawless before you act again. You will learn to repair in place. Confidence doesn't come from being untouched. It comes from being touchable and repairing quickly. Start with your breath. Let it lengthen like a ribbon. Inhale to 4 through your nose and notice the cool sting just inside the bridge. Hold for 4 and feel the small, steady tap of your heart answering from behind your breastbone. Exhale for 6 as if you're fogging glass. Sense the subtle weight of your shoulders sliding down a notch. The body learns safety through repetition. If safety is here, repair can happen here. Install your first tool, the Repair in Place protocol. Overthinking tries to convert any error into a pause that lasts days. The protocol refuses exile. It runs in 4 moves that you can do at your desk, in a hallway, even mid-conversation when needed. Name, normalize, needle, next. You name what happened in 1 camera-level sentence. I missed the deadline by 2 hours. You normalize the biology. Bodies panic and brains spin. That's legal. You needle the learnable edge with a single question. What part of this is controllable within the next hour? Then you take the next inch, not the perfect fix. Send the status update. Reschedule the review. Start the draft. Request the resource. The power is in collapsing the time between the sting and the stitch. You stop hemorrhaging energy into blame and pump it into repair. You are training your nervous system that rupture is survivable and actionable, not a verdict. Science kept friendly. When an error occurs, your brain generates an electrical blip, sometimes called the error-related negativity. A quick "hey" from your monitoring systems. Overthinking turns that "hey" into a hostage negotiation. The protocol answers with action that quiets the alarm. Movement releases a pulse of dopamine for progress made, even if small, which tells your brain, keep going. The amygdala stops shouting into a megaphone when the prefrontal cortex has a job to do. Translating, repair shrinks noise. A story. Midweek, fluorescent lights, washing everything a little too bright, you realize you sent a report with an outdated figure. It's not catastrophic, but it matters. Heat blooms under your collar, mouth goes dry, and the narrator rears up with a script that begins, "Of course you did." You want to vanish or craft a 1,000-word defense. Instead, you run repair in place. Name, I sent Q3's figure as Q4. Normalize, bodies make weather, panic isn't proof. Needle, what can I control in the next hour? Answer, issue a correction, update the deck, propose a 5-minute huddle. Next, you type, correction, slide 7 shows Q3 numbers. Here is the accurate Q4 figure and an updated link. If useful, I can walk through in 5 minutes. You hit send, breathe, and feel the hot ring around your chest loosen by 1 notch. 10 minutes later, your teammate replies, "Thanks for the quick fix. You did not need a confessional essay. You needed a stitch. Let your attention land on your hands. Notice the difference in temperature between your palms and the backs. Feel the texture of your clothes along your ribs, the dry air cool on the skin under your eyes. Listen for the farthest sound, a hallway door click, the low throat clear of a building settling. Sensation pulls you back from the theater where shame performs its one-man show. The second tool is the confidence ledger. Overthinking keeps a ledger too, but it records only debts. You will train a ledger that records credits earned by finished cycles, not perfect outcomes. Each cycle contains 3 entries, an inch attempted, a stitch made, a lesson phrased as a rule of thumb. The rule must be tiny and portable. Send draft at 80% by 3 p.m. Book a 10-minute buffer before handoffs. Ask for criteria before writing. You write them like a craftsman's notes in the margin. The ledger is not a trophy case. It's a mechanic's log. Brains trust logs over vibes. When the next wobble comes, you flip pages and find proof you've repaired before. Proof beats pep talk. Here's your micro drill, the 60-second ledger rep. At day's end, set a 1-minute timer. Without flourish, record 1 inch you took, 1 stitch you made, 1 rule you learned. If your mind argues that the inch wasn't grand enough, that is your cue to write it anyway. The RES learns from what you notice. If you notice completions, it fetches more chances to complete. If you notice failures, it fetches more reasons to freeze. You are not lying to yourself. You are calibrating the searchlight. A scene in your kitchen at 9:18 p.m. The counter is cool under your forearms. A single glass sweats a ring onto a magazine. You think of the email you could have sent cleaner. The shoulders climb 1/2 inch. You whisper, ledger, and write. Inch, asked for timeline. Stitch, corrected attachment in 5 minutes. Rule, attach before writing copy. Your body doesn't erupt in fireworks. It unclenches enough to exhale without hitch. That's the currency. Repair in place meets its partner, the clean failure frame. Most people treat failure like a courtroom with 2 verdicts, guilty or guilty. The frame turns it into a lab with 2 categories. Test ran as designed, or test returned a signal. A signal is not a sin. You extract signal with a 3-sentence script. Sentence 1, what you tried in behavior terms. Sentence 2, what reality said in facts, not insults. Sentence 3, what to alter next time framed as a constraint or cue. You write, tried. Pitch started with features, reality, questions focused on outcomes, features caused drift. Alter, lead with one outcome story, then feature that supports it. The frame inoculates you against the shame loop by redirecting attention to the only thing that can change. Behavior under constraints. Identity is not on trial. Method is. Breathe in and let your ribs widen sideways. Feel that odd mix of expansion and safety. On the exhale, imagine dust settling on a sunny windowsill. Notice the curve of your lower back meeting the chair. Soften there. Sense the weight of your feet pressing down, the floor answering back like a steady friend. Now you add a body-first accessory that speeds repair, the vagal tune trio. Humming, lengthened exhale, and gaze widening. You hum a low note for 10 seconds. Feel vibration at lips and throat. That buzz stimulates parasympathetic pathways and softens the edge off urgency. You follow with a slow exhale longer than your inhale, then a left-to-right eye sweep that gathers edges in your environment. The trio is like turning a dimmer knob. You are not eliminating responsibility. You're adjusting arousal to a level where responsibility is useful. Then you run name normalize, needle next. You will be surprised how often the urge to hide dissolves enough to let action happen. A story from a hallway that smells faintly of copier heat. Your teammate flags a bug in code you shipped. The word bug pierces like a small needle in your side. The first thought is not a thought. It's a collapsing feeling behind your sternum. You duck into a quiet corner, hum for 10 seconds, watch the light from a window move along the floor, and exhale slow. The room returns to full color. Repair in place. Name, I introduced a search glitch. Normalize, bodies flood, then settle. Needle, fix in the next hour. Next, revert to previous commit, post a status, add test. You walk back, speak plainly, move your hands. 30 minutes later, the glitch is gone and the team is working. Confidence doesn't feel like a chest-beating anthem. It feels like the cool of the hallway air on your neck and the click of a clean commit message. You'll meet a protest from inside. What about reputation? Overthinking mistakes reputation for a mirror. Reputation is a lens. People look through it, not at it, and it updates fastest when they can see you repair. The ledger of others records reliability, not mythology. If you normalize repair, you become the person who can be trusted when, not if, things wobble. Fast repair is leadership at the scale that matters. The scale others can feel. Place a hand on your chest. Feel the gentle lift of breath meeting your palm. Let your jaw unhinge a touch and rest your tongue against the roof of your mouth. Sense the fabric along your collarbone, the quiet warmth at the base of your neck. Return to the room. It is larger than the sentence shame is trying to write. Add a companion practice called the 24-hour reframe. When something stings, You granted a full day to teach you before you close the book. Inside that day, you commit to 2 windows, a 10-minute after-action review and a 10-minute next action build. In the review, you run the clean failure frame. In the build, you construct a small guardrail you can deploy within 24 hours, a checklist line, a pre-send pause, a peer glance. The day is a container that prevents both premature denial and indefinite self-punishment. Sleep inside that day does half the work. Your brain will metabolize the emotion and return you to planning with a colder head. You will sometimes miss a repair window and reopen the scene hours later. That's where the second arrow shield from earlier returns. You speak, "That was a rep, the next rep starts now," and then you run a nano repair. 1 sentence to the person affected, 1 adjustment to the system that failed. The message is, "I see it. Here's what I'm doing." The adjustment is tiny. Move the check up the chain, rename the file to a better template, put the sticky note where your eyes land. Small systemic edits are how cultures change, including the culture inside your head. Another scene. Sunday evening, your living room dim, a lamp throwing a cone of honey-colored light on a rug. You realize you've been curt with someone you love all day, preoccupied by a looming task. Guilt raises static in your ears. The old move would be to construct a perfect speech, then never deliver it. Repair in place. Name. I've been distant today. Normalize. Brains get tunneled before deadlines. Needle. What can I do in the next 10 minutes? Next, I'm setting a 20-minute timer to knock out the scariest piece. Then I want to take a walk and actually listen. You say it out loud, hum once, feel your chest open half an inch. 20 minutes later, you lace your shoes. The air outside is a cooler layer on your skin. Sounds sharpen, the flap of a flag, a dog's collar clinking. The day tilts back toward connection. You didn't wait to be a better person, you acted like one. Here's a mental sleight of hand that helps on the worst days, the tense flip. Overthinking talks in a future perfect tense. I will have ruined. That makes doom feel already accomplished. You flip the tense to present actionable. Right now, I can, and hang the sentence on 1 verb. Right now, I can apologize. Right now, I can send a correction. Right now, I can ask for criteria. The tense flip snaps the prefrontal cortex awake by handing it a lever it can pull. Repeated, the flip becomes reflex. Reflex is mercy when you're tired. Breathe with a small variation, in for 4, out for 8, twice. Feel how the longer exhale adds a soft heaviness to your limbs, like sand settling. Notice the pressure where your heels meet the floor. Look left, clock a picture frame. Look right, catch the edge of a door. Your eyes remind your brain there are exits, which is all a panicked system is secretly begging to know. Integrate all of this into the micro-traction loop. Traction is movement with grip. The loop has 5 beats that fit in 2 minutes. Sense the sting, run the vagal tune trio, execute repair in place, write 1 ledger line, and tense flip into the next inch. Sting, tune, repair, record, move. Say it low like a mantra when you need it. The loop turns a free fall into a foothold. Each time you run it, the time from impact to traction shrinks. That shrinking is confidence you can feel in your bones. You might fear that fast repair rewards carelessness. The opposite is true. Because you record lessons as rules of thumb and adjust your systems, your error rate drops even as your speed rises. You are writing your own operating manual in the margins of your days. The manual is humble and specific, the best kind. Overthinking wants epics, Wisdom wants checklists. You are choosing wisdom. A final scene to stitch your identity shift. It's quarterly review day. In a glass-walled room, your manager notes 2 wins and 1 miss that still bothers you. Heat creeps up your neck. The old courtroom in your chest begins construction. You feel your feet in your shoes, the tightness loosened by a breath. You run the vagal tune trio silently. Your gaze widens past the laptop to the window's rectangle of sky. You repair in place. You're right about the miss. I've already added a pre-send pause and a peer glance for that handoff. If we notice drift again, I'll escalate within the hour. The conversation stays about behavior, not worth. After, in the quiet of a stairwell, you hum once, write a ledger line, and text a thank you for the candor. As you walk back, the echo of your footsteps sounds steady, like a metronome set to a human tempo. You aren't flawless, you're reliable. That is better. Notice your breath one more time. Inhale and feel a cool ribbon trace the inside of your nose. Exhale and feel your ribs float down like blinds closing at dusk. Sense the pulse at your wrist, a reminder that your body keeps time even when your mind loses track. Place a hand on your chest and let the warmth of your palm meet the warmth beneath. You are not the mistake. You are the awareness that learns, repairs, and proceeds. You are the person who can stand inside a moment that stings and choose the smallest wise action anyway. Before sleep, whisper this fetch to your RAS. Tomorrow, show me one place to repair in place and one rule of thumb to write after. Your searchlight will find them. Your hands will move. The ledger will thicken. Your confidence will stop being a wish and start being the quiet knowledge that you come back fast. You do not need to avoid every wobble to trust yourself. You need to trust that when wobble arrives, you will hum, breathe, root the power to your hands, and stitch. That's how clarity survives weather. That's how steady confidence is built, not by erasing humanity, but by becoming skilled at the most human act, repair. Ready for part 7, you said, continued chosen. Audiobooks test, 1 Tanpa file said, thought for 40s. Overthinking loves porous borders. You say yes because silence felt awkward. You agree to circle back because the room nodded. You let vague requests camp in your inbox like uninvited guests. Then you stew. Your chest hums with low-voltage tension. Your jaw slides forward 1/8 of an inch. Your breath gets trapped in the top of your chest. You start gaming out explanations you'll need when the future you inevitably let someone down. This isn't weakness, it's architecture. Tonight, you'll install walls and doors where there used to be curtains, not to shut life out, but to give your attention a home with locks that work. Boundaries are not ultimatums. They're agreements with reality that reduce rumors in your head. Begin with the boundary compass. Picture a small brass instrument you can hold in your palm. It has 4 points you can feel, even in the dark: value, capacity, context, consequence. Value asks, does this serve who I'm becoming? Capacity asks, do I have honest energy and time this cycle? Context asks, is this the right setting and format to succeed? Consequence asks, what fails if I say yes, and what opens if I say no? When you run the compass, you don't debate your worth. You measure fit. Overthinking hates measurement. It prefers myths. Measurement brings the prefrontal cortex online and tells the reticular activating system what to fetch. Cues that match your values, not your fears. Breathe once in a 4-4-6 rhythm. Feel the cool thread at the bridge of your nose, the warm wash on the way out. Notice your feet, the way the floor quietly pushes back. Let your shoulders lower an inch as if someone loosened a strap. With your body not shouting, you can hear the compass click. A story. Tuesday afternoon, fluorescent light, the gentle drone of a copier in the hallway. Your colleague says, "Hey, would you join the new committee? It's only an hour a week." Your chest tightens the way it does when an elevator dips. Your mouth floods with the urge to please. The old script starts composing an apology for a no you haven't said yet. You touch your palm to your sternum, breathe once, and run the boundary compass in a single whispered sentence. Value, yes. Capacity, not in this cycle. Context, I'd need a shorter sync. Consequence, my core project would slip. Then you use the golden line, a boundary sentence you can trust. I want to do this well, and my bandwidth isn't there this month. If a 15-minute consult helps, I can offer 2 slots. Silence. The room doesn't crack. Your colleague nods and says, 2 slots would be perfect. The committee proceeds without your weekly attendance, and your project lands clean. Your brain learns a fact that matters. Respect often follows clarity. Boundaries are body tools as much as language tools. When you feel the yes urge spike, you run the capacity check breath. Inhale through your nose for 4 and count your current commitments on your fingers, 1 per beat. Hold for 4 and picture the calendar squares you've already promised. Exhale for 6 while whispering, "Right now, I have," and name the 2 most energy-heavy tasks aloud. Saying them turns fog into objects. Objects can be arranged. Fog can only be feared. Here's the science made friendly. The Zeigarnik effect keeps unfinished tasks buzzing in the background, which your amygdala misreads as danger, and your RAS highlights like neon. Unclear boundaries multiply unfinished loops. Clear agreements, close loops, or keep them in labeled containers that sit quietly while you handle the one loop that's live. Decision fatigue isn't moral failure, it's math. Every maybe costs you a slice of executive function. The compass reduces maybes. Clean language reduces renegotiation drama. Your biology thanks you with steadier attention. Install your second tool, the Clean Agreements Protocol. Agreements get made 3 ways, out loud, in calendars, and inside your head. The protocol makes all 3 visible and trainable. First, you only make agreements you can see on a page within 60 seconds. If you can't write it, it's not real. Second, you renegotiate early, like a pilot diverting while there's still fuel to land elsewhere. Third, you close with receipts. 1 sentence that marks the loop complete. Sent, delivered, handoff confirmed. The point isn't bureaucracy, it's mercy. Your nervous system relaxes when it knows which promises exist, which are changing, and which are done. Practice a micro drill called doorframe rehearsal. Before you enter a conversation where a boundary might be needed, you pause at a literal doorframe. Feel the cool paint under your fingers, the slight grain under the gloss. Whisper your golden line and your backup line so your mouth knows the shape of them. Golden line is a yes, no with a value and a path. I want to contribute and here's what I can offer. Backup is a firm, clean no tied to consequence awareness. Saying yes would take focus from X I have to decline. The doorframe anchors your nervous system to a physical cue. When the moment arrives, your lips don't have to invent courage. They repeat. Check your body now. Notice the skin under your eyes, cooler than your cheeks. Sense the weight of your thighs on the chair. Listen for the softest sound in the room, the kind that usually hides under louder thoughts. Attention dispersed across senses does not disappear, it stabilizes. From that stability, speech becomes simple. You'll add a refinement called the three-gate yes. Every yes passes through a line, ability, and aftercare. A line asks whether the request fits a declared value this quarter. Ability asks whether your current energy and skill meet the demand without spillover. Aftercare asks what you will need to recover, transition, or protect your other commitments. If you can't name aftercare, the yes turns into a slow no in disguise, a delay, resentment, or ghosting. The three-gate yes prevents subtle self-betrayal that later becomes overthinking bait. Another story. Sunday, warm light pooling across a table scattered with weekend clutter. A friend texts, "Emergency move today. Can you help for a few hours?" Your stomach tightens. Your brain throws up 3 channels at once: loyalty, logistics, guilt. You run the three-gate yes. A line, generosity matters to you. Ability, you're on deadline tomorrow and your sleep's been thin. Your body feels like a phone at 20%. Aftercare, if you go, you'll need a 2-hour nap you can't afford. Golden line time. I care about you, and I can't live today without hurting my deadline. I can book you a truck now and cover the fee. The phone warms in your palm. A minute later, truck would help so much. Thank you. You didn't abandon your friend. You offered a version of help that your real body could deliver. At night, you fall asleep without the buzzsaw of what-ifs. Run a live rep with the boundary compass on something small. Bring to mind a request that's been hovering. An extra meeting, a last-minute favor, a social plan you keep maybe-ing. Inhale for 4. Feel your ribs expand sideways. Hold and place a hand on your sternum. Exhale for 6. Whisper the points: value, capacity, context, consequence. If value and capacity say no and context can't be adjusted, let consequence give you courage. Declining here protects what you've already vowed elsewhere. You can be both kind and clear. Kindness without clarity is cruelty to your future self. Your narrator will argue that boundaries will make you cold. Overthinking will audition catastrophes where people leave when you stop overgiving. The lab says otherwise. In teams, predictable boundaries increase trust because others can forecast your behavior. In relationships, clear edges allow intimacy to land without slipping into obligation. In your own head, boundaries reduce the noise floor, so a single choice can be heard. Your body confirms this the first time you say a clean no. Heat rises, then cools. Breath deepens. The room brightens. That's not you becoming heartless. That's you returning blood to your planning centers. We'll fold in a relational micro-protocol called Boundary Bridge. It has 3 planks you can walk in one breath. Appreciation, limit, offer. You appreciate the person or aim with a true sentence so your nervous system stays connected. You state the limit in present tense, not as a debate. You offer a path that protects your values and helps where you can. I appreciate how much you care about this. I'm not able to take weekend calls. I can answer 3 questions by noon tomorrow. This is not a loophole to avoid responsibility. It is a way to be responsible without setting yourself on fire. In a living room at dusk, the air warm on your forearms, someone you love asks for a quick chat. That historically was never quick. Your throat tightens, a heat rising like a blush you didn't request. You put your hand on the armrest and feel the fabric's texture. Boundary Bridge. I want to give this the energy it deserves. I have 20 minutes now, or I can do 40 tomorrow at 6. Which helps more? The conversation that follows fits the container you set. There is less spill, less late-night parsing, less morning after resentment. You didn't win a duel. You built a bridge. Let's tie the compass to your calendar with the promise physics move. A promise obeys gravity. The more mass it has, duration, visibility, dependency, the stronger its pull on other objects. You assign mass before you accept. If the mass is high, you anchor it early in the week and early in the day, and you install buffers before and after. If the mass is low, you can tuck it into edges without stealing oxygen. Naming mass prevents you from smuggling a heavy promise into a light day. The smuggling is what births overthinking at 11:47 p.m. Pause and let your eyes slowly scan left to right across the room. Your peripheral field widens. Your body learns there is space. Squeeze your shoulder blades back, then release. Feel the gentle echo of your heartbeat against your fingers. The more the body trusts the room, the cleaner your words exit your mouth. Add one more tiny drill, the 15-word boundary. In a sentence no longer than 15 words, you say your value, your limit, and your offer. I value focused work. I can't join weekly. I'll review a draft monthly. Practice twice today in low stakes, declining an optional thread, framing a meeting window so your tongue grows fluent. Fluency turns panic into rhythm. Sometimes the hardest boundary is with yourself. Overthinking makes you promise outputs your biology can't deliver because fantasy is a cheap comfort. You'll run the agreement hygiene reset on your own plans. You lower a plan's altitude until it sits on a table you can touch. From write the report to draft the first page. From get in shape to walk 15 minutes at noon. You make one promise your present body can keep today. You keep it. You write kept in your confidence ledger. The self you meet tomorrow trusts you an inch more. Trust compounds. There is one more protest to answer. What about opportunity cost? What if the no makes you miss the one shot? That thought is an artifact in Switchboard terms, a ghost of scarcity that keeps your life fuzzy so you can feel perpetually almost ready. Scarcity is not wrong. It is simply not a good architect. Value clarity attracts better shots because people who value what you value can find you. You will miss some things. You will gain your life. Return to identity. You are not a people pleaser trying to cosplay as assertive. You are the awareness that can choose which promises your hands will enact. You are the steward of your attention's home. You are the observer behind the weather who can open and close doors based on season, not fear. Your voice is not a weapon. It is a doorbell and a latch. You ring when you arrive. You lock when you sleep. For a final scene, step into a large meeting where agendas blur and quick asks multiply like vines. Your chest does the small flutter. The room buzzes with overlapping urgency. You ground with a long exhale, and the boundary script returns like a song you've practiced. I can give this 5 minutes now or 60 minutes Thursday with prep. Choose what serves. The team chooses Thursday. The conversation ends sooner. The work Thursday is sharper. After, as you walk down a hallway that smells faintly of dust and coffee, your shoulders are down, your jaw soft. The room in your head is quiet. Not empty, quiet. That quiet is where clear choices become possible. Before sleep, set your RAS a fetch. Whisper, show me one place to use the boundary compass and one agreement to clean early. Your searchlight will tilt toward circumstances that invite clarity rather than conflict. Tomorrow you'll make one smaller yes, one cleaner no, one earlier renegotiation. Each will shave a degree off the chronic heat of overthinking. Each will make the room in your chest feel a millimeter wider. Look around now and name 3 edges in your space: a tabletop, a door frame, a window. Edges let light in and keep drafts out. They are how rooms avoid being fields where anything can wander. Your boundaries are edges. They will not turn you into stone. They will make your life a home where your work can breathe, your relationships can rest, and your mind can stop circling. You will not be perfect, but you will be clear. Clarity is not cold. Clarity is kind. Ready for part 8? You said, continue chosen audiobooks test. 1. Tanpa file said, thought for 37s. Visibility can turn your mind into a siren. The moment eyes are on you, real or imagined, your heartbeat skitters, your throat goes dry, your words blur into a single anxious chord. Overthinking loves this stage because it promises humiliation and calls it foresight. You rehearse disaster, you histogram every eyebrow in the room, and you try to engineer perfection under floodlights. Tonight, you learn to make the stage smaller and the room warmer. You will not wait to become fearless. You will become skillful, which is better. 2 tools do the heavy lifting: the Spotlight Shrink Protocol and the Campfire Exchange. Together, they convert performance into presence. Begin with your breath so your body believes you. Inhale for 4 and notice the cool thread at the bridge of your nose. Hold for 4 and feel the ribs widen like quiet doors on oiled hinges. Exhale for 6 and let the shoulders descend a ½ inch. Spread your toes inside your shoes and feel the floor answer back. When your body receives proof of here, your mind stops shouting that you're somewhere terrible. The Spotlight Shrink Protocol starts before you speak. The mind's alarm is not mystical. Social evaluation flicks the amygdala's switch and narrows your vision to threat. You widen it on purpose. Stand or sit and do a slow left-to-right sweep with your eyes, catching edges, frame, window, plant, until the room grows by a few inches. Place a fingertip to your sternum, just enough pressure to say, "This is a body, not a concept." Then pick a single anchor in your scene: a green dot near your camera, a quiet face, a mark on the wall. That dot is home base. When the inner narrator starts broadcasting doom, you return your gaze to the dot and your breath to the 4-4-6 cadence. Next, you prime your first 8 words. The brain loves completion. It is the blank page that terrifies it. You choose an opening sentence that names purpose and invites focus, like, "Here's the one question we'll answer together today." Your prefrontal cortex can grip an 8-word rail when adrenaline is sloppy. Finally, you run a 90-second weather watch just before you begin. Sensations, not sentences. Heat at the cheeks, buzz by the ribs, a dry tongue that wants water, let it crest, no plot. When you start speaking, the chemistry has already peaked. You are surfing the back of the wave, not its breaking lip, a story from a carpeted boardroom that smelled faintly of lemon cleaner. Your palms were damp on the laptop. The projector's fan hummed like a nervous insect. 15 faces waited, one of them stony with the kind of patience that feels like judgment. The old you would have tried to outrun the feeling with speed. Instead, you ran Spotlight Shrink. Eyes swept left to right. Green dot anchored near the screen's corner, finger to sternum. "Here's the one question we'll answer together today," you heard your own voice say, slower than fear wanted. Then you asked a single grounded question. "Before we dive in, what outcome would make this a yes?" The stony face lifted an eyebrow and named an outcome you could serve. The room shifted shape. You were not a defendant. You were a guide. Pause and check your body. Sense the temperature difference between the backs of your hands and your palms. Notice the soft pressure where your shirt touches your collarbones. Hear the farthest sound available, the faint hiss of air, a distant door. These small anchors tell your nervous system there are exits. Panic is a liar that says there are none. Science bridge in plain language. When eyes are on you, your midbrain interprets gaze as possible threat. Ancestral wiring. Peripheral vision and slow exhale send countersignal. We are not being chased. Preloading an opening sentence engages language networks before the amygdala can steal more blood from your planning centers. The green dot is not superstition. It's a cue that keeps your reticular activating system aimed at purpose rather than scanning faces for danger. Translate that into what you can use. Widen, anchor, begin, breathe. Once the spotlight is smaller, you convert the stage into a fire. The Campfire exchange reframes performance as conversation, so your nervous system stops auditioning for safety and starts creating it. A campfire has 3 moves: spark, circle, ember. Though you won't recite them like rules, you will feel them. The spark is a short story or question that names the shared problem in human language. The circle is a loop where you ask, listen, and summarize in one breath so people feel seen and you gain signal. The ember is the small, glowing action that closes heat into direction. Campfires are not monologues. They are exchanges that reduce guesswork. Run it alive. Imagine you're presenting a roadmap. The spark sounds like, 2 bottlenecks keep stealing our mornings. Let's light them up and leave with one clean path. The circle is you asking, if we solved one piece first, which unlocks the most relief? And then reflecting, so what I'm hearing is that handoffs, not tooling, cause the drag. The ember is a next inch with a clock. We'll test a 5-minute stand down at each handoff for 1 week and measure the drop in rework. Your voice lowers when you summarize. Your breath lengthens when you choose a clock. People's faces uncrease because their bodies hear a plan. Your own body hears it too. Feel your seat bones settle. Let your jaw unclench and rest your tongue on the roof of your mouth. Notice a patch of skin, maybe the inside of your forearm, where air meets you a degree cooler. The body loves plans. It relaxes when hands know what to do next. Visibility hurts most in 2 places: the first 30 seconds and the 5 minutes after. The first 30 seconds feel like standing on a dock as a wave rolls in. Your legs aren't sure where the ground has gone. That is why your first 8 words are a rail, not poetry. The 5 minutes after are where overthinking harvests you with a highlight reel of imagined mistakes. You will seal both edges with a ritual called the decompression sandwich. Intent before, digest after. Before you whisper your intent and your audience of 1, serve clarity for the decision maker. You run 1 4-4-6 breath. After, you take a 3-minute walk with your phone in your pocket, eyes soft on the horizon, and you speak 3 lines to yourself in order. 1 thing that landed, 1 thing to try differently, 1 person to thank. You do this before you read any message, before you curate shame. What you record first is what your RS will treat as the index gratitude and learning, not autopsy. Then, if you must review tape, you review it looking for processes to adjust, not character to prosecute. A small scene. You stepped out of a conference room into a hallway washed by afternoon sun. Your hands shook the way a string vibrates after a note. You wanted to sprint back into the room for a perfect postscript. Instead, you walked the length of the hall to a window, looked out at a patch of sky, and spoke. Landed the timeline framing. Try differently. Ask for the outcome earlier. Thank Priya for her question. When your phone buzzed, you let it buzz. 3 minutes later, the vibration in your hands had softened to a hum. You were a person again. Add a micro drill that keeps you from drowning in faces, the friendly triangle. You choose 2 friendly eyes and your green dot. You cycle between them slowly while you speak. Person A, dot, person B, dot. This prevents you from locking onto the one skeptical brow. Your RAS would love to serve you as doom. The triangle is not manipulation. It is a way to share attention while you keep your footing. Inhale for 4 and imagine the breath expanding sideways under your ribs. Hold and feel your heart tap like a quiet knuckle on a wooden door. Exhale long and let your shoulders slip down. Look left and right again, catching corners. Your body registers space. Sometimes visibility is not in a room. It is in an inbox or a feed. Overthinking wants you to write the post like a legal document and then never ship it. You will use the 20-minute window widen for public work. Set a 20-minute timer. In minute 1, you run the spotlight shrink. In minutes 2 through 10, you write a single service-forward paragraph. What you wish you knew last year, what you learned from a mistake, what question clarified a project. In minutes 11 through 15, you run a probe, then plan microprobe. You share it with one person whose clarity you trust, asking, what's clear? What drags? Minutes 16 through 20, you ship to your audience of 1, even if the world never reads it. The audience of 1 is a real person you imagine reading it and benefiting. It keeps you from broadcasting to a stadium and freezes your fear's tongue. A story from a quiet kitchen lit only by a lamp and a refrigerator's breath. You were writing a thread about a process you just debugged. Your brain tightened its tie and demanded perfect nuance. You ran window widen, shrink, write the paragraph, probe. The reply came back. Line 3 sings, cut line 6. You cut and shipped. The world did not clap. 2 people wrote, this helped. That was the point. The campfire warmed a small circle. You slept without the post-mortem courtroom opening at midnight. Let's give your biology one more ally, the pace meter. When adrenaline is high, your mouth accelerates to outrun the feeling. You will choose a pace that matches your breath rather than your fear. Place 2 fingertips on your wrist and feel the pulse. Speak so that a sentence extends across 2 to 3 heartbeats, then breathe. You are syncing your language to physiology. Your listeners won't notice the math. They will feel relief. So will you. Pause. Sense the weight of your thighs against the chair. Tilt your chin slightly down and gaze at the top edge of an object. Feel how that posture softens the neck. The body is a set of levers. Small changes produce real shifts in the room you inhabit. Your inner critic will insist that none of this matters because the only safety is perfection. Perfection is a moving exit sign. Chasing it is the surest way to stay lost. The lab translation is simple. Your brain updates its threat map based on prediction error. If you repeatedly survive visibility while acting with these protocols, your map changes. The heat at your cheeks will still arrive. It will no longer headline your story. You will reinforce this shift with the review as recipe move. After a visible moment, you write one paragraph like a recipe card. Ingredients you brought, calm opening, 1 question. Heat applied, breath, green dot. Taste test, what faces or chat signals told you. And 1 tweak for next time. You file it with your confidence ledger. Recipes teach your future self how to cook under pressure. Vague, be better, teaches nothing. Another scene, this time an interview that once would have felt like a trial. The office smelled like new folders. The chair squeaked once as you sat, and your jaw wanted to clamp. You ran a silent shrink, eyes swept, breath lengthened. You set your friendly triangle. Then Campfire replaced audition. You said, here's the problem I love solving and the way I test whether I'm actually solving it. What outcome matters most to you this quarter? Their shoulders lowered. The conversation turned into a map, not a quiz. When they asked a curveball, you used the tense flip. Right now, I can show you my approach and walk them through S2S and probe then plan on a whiteboard. You left not certain of outcome, but certain of self. That is the confidence you're building. Check in with sensation again. Run a physiologic sigh. Small inhale. Another sip. Long exhale. Feel the breath drape across the top of your chest like a warm cloth. Listen for the quietest mechanical sound in the room. Notice the ring of warmth encircling your neck and how it cools as air moves. These small windows keep you here, which is where choices live. Sometimes you won't have time to prime any ritual. You'll be called on cold. That is where the 1 line and 1 lung technique saves you. 1 line is a single sentence that buys you 10 seconds. Give me a beat to choose the most useful slice. 1 lung is a full, slow inhale that you use to scan your first 8 words and pick your anchor. Buy yourself that beat out loud. Audiences respect deliberate speech. Your nervous system will treat the permission as oxygen. Post-visibility, your brain will want to ruminate. If the loop refuses to close, run the 2-window deliberation you learned earlier, aimed at your performance. In window 1, you name 1 thing you did well and 1 constraint you'll adjust. You do not litigate character. You sleep. Window 2, you run a tiny probe to test the adjustment, not your worth. A notice to yourself, to open with a question, a calendar link for a practice session, a camera angle change so your eyes can find the green dot easier. Over time, the need for window 2 shrinks because your nervous system believes what you repeatedly enact. Tie this to identity. You are not the performance. You are the presence that hosts a conversation. You are not the applause or the silence. You are the awareness that can widen a room, lower a breath, and choose a sentence that does work in the world. You are the observer behind the weather, the guide at the campfire, the person who shrinks a stage to a patch of ground where feet can stand. 1 last scene to thread the tools together. A quarterly town hall, 200 people, a stage that sharpened every sound. The lights poured heat on your face. Your hands wanted to hover behind your back like a school kid trying not to fidget. You walked to your mark and felt the tape under your shoe. Shrink, sweep, dot, breath. Here's the 1 question we'll answer together today. Campfire. If we unlocked 1 stuck door this quarter, which would give you back the most time? You listened. You summarized. You named the ember, 3 pilot teams, 1 change in handoff protocol, 1 date to review signal. After, your legs felt like ladders you could climb down without wobbling. In a quiet stairwell, the air cooler on your forearms, you spoke your 3 lines and texted a thank you to the person whose question sharpened the plan. That night, when your mind tried to open the courtroom, It found a campfire instead. Take one more breath. Inhale until your ribs widen sideways, like a book opening. Hold and feel a steady knock at your breastbone. Exhale until your shoulders settle and the room returns in full color. You're ready to be seen not because you've eradicated doubt, but because you've learned to host it gently, shrink its spotlight, and invite others to the fire where clarity is built together, 1 inch at a time. Ready for part 9? You said, continue chosen. Audiobooks test 1, Tanpa File said, thought for 54s. Comparison is gasoline on the fire of overthinking. You scroll past someone's launch, someone's ring, someone's abs, and your chest tightens like a fist around your lungs. Your jaw slides forward a fraction. Your breath hovers high and thin. You start accounting where you failed, what you should have done by now, why you can't catch up. The mind mistakes envy for evidence. It isn't. It's a signal with bad PR. Tonight, you'll turn comparison into craft. You will not purge desire. You will refine it. You'll install 2 tools, the feed tuner and comparison alchemy, so the same moments that once hijacked your nervous system become maps that return you to your road. Breathe in for 4 and feel the cool thread pass the bridge of your nose. Hold for 4 and sense your ribs widen like doors set on quiet hinges. Exhale for 6 and let your shoulders drop a notch. Notice the weight of your feet. The floor answers back whether you're winning or losing. That answer is relief. Your body knows where here is. Overthinking lives in elsewhere. The first tool is the feed tuner. Your reticular activating system, the searchlight in your brain, locks onto whatever you tag as important. If your silent tag is proof I'm behind, the RAS fetches 1,000 exhibits and discards evidence of progress. The feed tuner retags your inputs so your searchlight brings you cues that build rather than bruise. You run it in 3 moves that fit inside 2 minutes. You prune, you plant, you program. Prune means you remove inputs that reliably produce shame without signal. Not forever, for a season long enough for your system to cool. Plant means you follow builders who show process, not just outcomes, craft over confetti, so your brain sees steps it can imitate. Program means you give your RAS a nightly line to fetch. Show me one honest cue that fits my values tomorrow. So the searchlight looks for textures, not trophies. The tuner isn't moral, it's mechanical. You are curating a museum your brain lives in. Science without the lecture. Mirror systems in your brain rehearse what you watch. If you only feed them finales, they rehearse despair. If you feed them drafts, drills, and corrections, they rehearse the motions that create finales. The amygdala calms when it sees steps it can take. The prefrontal cortex engages when a path is visible. Translation: your nervous system loves process because process offers oxygen to choice. A story: you're in a cafe that smells like citrus peel and steam. Your screen flashes a friend's "We did it" announcement. High-gloss video, applause emojis like confetti cannons. Your stomach fizzes with carbonated heat. Your mouth goes dry. The old script begins building a courtroom. You run the feed tuner on the spot. Prune. Mute the account for 30 days, not as punishment, as care. Plant. Follow 2 accounts that show messy middle, drafts with red ink, recorded rehearsals, behind-the-scenes checklists. Program. Whisper, show me one cue I can copy by noon, and put your phone face down. A minute later, you notice the barista's checklist for drink stations. Laminated, simple, still smudged with life. You feel a quiet click. The cue. Your project needs a laminated, visible checklist for handoffs. You write 3 lines in notes. The heat in your chest loses a degree. You didn't pretend you don't want what your friend has. You translated want into work. Notice the cool patch of skin on the inside of your forearm where air moves. Feel the fabric along your collarbone, the soft pressure that says you exist even when no one is watching. Hear the farthest sound you can find, the hiss of milk, a door's hinge. Sensation widens your world beyond the rectangle of glass and your own narration. The second tool is comparison alchemy. Envy is desire mixed with a story about scarcity. Alchemy separates the elements so you can keep the desire and discard the lie. You'll run it as a short conversation with yourself named Admire Attribute Apply. Admire means you say out loud what is actually good in what you're seeing. A skill, a consistency, a kindness. Admiration is safer than envy because it doesn't steal your worth to make room for praise. Attribute means you identify the component that produced the result. Relationship built, reps logged, a specific learning loop, not the mythic essence. They're just gifted. Apply means you choose the smallest wise action that puts that component into your next hour. Admire clears the poison. Attribute reveals the lever. Apply pulls it. Bridge to biology. Naming admiration recruits networks for social learning rather than threat. Identifying attributes moves your brain from global judgments to local levers your hands can touch. Taking a small action catches dopamine for progress, which flags the behavior for repeat. Envy becomes a compass, not a cage. Do a live rep. Call to mind the last post that punctured your mood. Feel the echo in your chest, that small sting like touching a cold doorknob in winter. Inhale 4, hold 4, exhale 6. Whisper, admire, and name what's genuinely good. Whisper, attribute, and pick one lever that a camera would observe. Daily demo sessions, a better brief, an early bedtime. Whisper, apply, and commit to a next inch you can do before the hour ends. Book a 20-minute demo, write a 1-paragraph brief, set a sleep alarm. Notice the urge to write a confession essay about your envy. You do not owe anyone that essay. You owe your nervous system a lever to pull. In a fluorescent hallway outside a staircase, you run into an old classmate whose ease in conversation always felt like a mirror showing you your awkwardness. Heat licks up your neck, your jaw tightens. The old you would perform, then replay the performance all week. You run comparison alchemy midstream. Admire. Their curiosity makes others feel seen. Attribute. They ask one sincere question and wait. Apply. You ask, what have you been building that you're quietly proud of? The conversation blooms like a plant that finally found light. Later, walking down the stairs, you notice your shoulders are lower and your breath is deeper than after any forced charm marathon. The lever was not, be charismatic. It was, ask a sincere question. Envy became instruction. Pause and place one hand on your sternum. Feel warmth. Meet warmth. Let your eyes sweep left to right across the room slowly, catching edges, a frame, a shadow, the curve of a chair. This lateral sweep tells midbrain circuits that tunnels are optional. Tunnels are where comparison lives. You'll add a micro-practice called gratitude in shadow. Gratitude often gets used like a scold. Be grateful and stop wanting things. That never worked. Gratitude in shadow invites desire and thanks them both to dinner. You name something you envy, you thank the part of you that wants more life, and you bless the next inch you'll take to meet it. It sounds like this. I envy their steady audience. Thank you, hunger, for pointing to connection. Bless the draft I'll send to one human today. This is prayer shaped like a plan. It quiets the nervous system because it includes the animal and the angel. Nothing is exiled. A scene at 11:41 p.m., bedroom warm and slightly stuffy. A phone lighting your face with blue. You catch yourself in a spiral. You place the phone face down, feel the sheet's cool line against your shin, and run, gratitude in shadow. I envy their pace. Thank you, hunger, for pointing to rhythm. Bless the calendar block I'll guard at 10 a.m. You set the block, you sleep. In the morning, that block exists. You fill it with one quiet sprint. The sprint becomes a stitch in a rhythm. The rhythm becomes a life. No applause, just steps. Let the science stay small. Your RAS doesn't care about your feelings toward inputs. It cares about tags and repetition. When you retag envy as instruction, when you mute finale reels for a season, when you plant process into your daily field of view, your searchlight shifts. It's not moral reform. It's lighting design. Overthinking will argue that pruning and muting are weakness, like flinching. This is where you use the tabletop check. What's on the table? Your pulse got fast, your breath stuck high, your jaw clenched. Your evening vanished into an autopsy of your worth, not on the table. Evidence that bathing in triggers grows your courage. Exposure therapy only works when paired with a controlled ladder of tolerable steps. You're not quitting the world. You're choosing weights your current nervous system can lift without tearing the muscle. Another story. At your mother's birthday dinner, the conversation turns into a comparison Olympics. Cousins list promotions and mortgages. Someone jokes, light as a knife, about your creative path. Heat floods your face, your chest narrows. The old you would swallow the room and then swallow your resentment. The trained you runs the feed tuner socially. You prune by not volunteering for that event next month. You plant by steering conversation to process. What habit made the biggest difference this year? You program your RRAS with a whispered fetch. Show me one cue of my own growth tonight. Later, while washing dishes, your mother says quietly, "You answer questions with such care now." There's your cue. You write it in your confidence ledger under rule of thumb. In tense rooms, ask one sincere process question. The evening ends without a midnight spiral. You didn't win status. You kept your self-respect. Check your breath. Inhale and feel your belly rise a finger's width. Hold and feel your heart like a drummer in another room. Exhale and imagine fog lifting off a lake. Note a neutral object in your periphery, the arc of a mug's handle, an uneven seam in the wall. Give your attention a non-problem to hold. Attention holding a non-problem can't fuel a problem. Fold in a small protocol called the signal garden. Comparison shrivels when you cultivate your own signal patches and visit them daily. You choose 3 plants: craft, care, and capacity. Craft is the skill you're sharpening this quarter. Care is the relationship you're tending with deliberate presence. Capacity is the energy range you're widening. Sleep, strength, stamina. Each morning you plan one action that waters one plant. Each evening you record one leaf you noticed, a sentence that landed clean, a 5-minute call that warmed a person, an earlier bedtime you protected. Your RAS learns that growth lives in these plots. The feed shrinks to a hedge around a garden you can touch. You add a friction edit called the 2-button phone. You place apps that spark comparison behind a second unlock, a focus mode, or a nested folder paired with a question. The question is your boundary gate for the digital door. Before the second unlock, you whisper, "Purpose?" If you can't answer in one line, you don't open. The amygdala doesn't get to yank every latch. You choose which doors to open and which to let be doors. Pause. Feel the temperature difference between your palms and the backs of your hands. Sense the weight of your thighs on the chair, the way gravity smooths the buzz in your legs. Hear a soft sound, and let it be proof that the world exceeds your screen. Excess is mercy. You are not trapped where your eyes point. Your inner prosecutor will ask whether you're losing your edge by refusing to eat your vegetables of envy. The edge you gain is focus. Focus builds a blade. Comparison only builds a show. Neuroscience says repetition under attention lays myelin around circuits, the sheath that makes signals travel faster. Myelin accrues where you practice, not where you stew. Your ledger and your garden record practice. Your body recognizes the difference. Stewing feels tight and hot. Practice feels steady and slightly warm, like hands over a campfire held at the right distance. You'll likely relapse. A late night, a low mood, a bored thumb that wanders into bright rooms and comes back smelling like smoke. This isn't proof of weakness. It's a cue for a nano reset, 1-4-4-6 breath, one comparison alchemy pass, one feed tuner adjustment. Then you enact the second arrow shield you already own. That was a rep. The next rep starts now. You move your hands toward a lever in your signal garden. Repentance in this house is spelled with action. Identity turn kept clear. You are not the consumer of other people's victories. You are the curator of your inputs and the creator of your outputs. You are the awareness that can bless desire without letting it bully you. You are the observer behind the weather and also the gardener who plants where rain actually falls. A closing scene to stitch it all to the skin. You're on a late train, carriage lights humming, the city sliding past in smears of gold. A stranger, 2 seats up, laughs at something on their phone. You imagine you know the joke. The screen in your hand offers escape into 1,000 rooms where you are always late. You feel the small ache behind your sternum that says you're tempted. You place 2 fingers there, as if pressing a seal. You open notes instead. Admire, I love their clarity. Attribute, they ship weekly. Apply, I'll ship 1 paragraph to a friend before bed. You type, short and earnest, and send. You put the phone down and look out the window. A building's dark glass becomes a mirror for a second. Your face floats there softer than earlier, less auditioning. You look back at your hands. They look like they belong to someone who builds. Breathe once more. Inhale low, slow. A tide reaching shore. Hold and feel the quiet electricity in your chest softened by a degree. Exhale long, as if fogging a pain. Whisper, so your nervous system hears it. Show me 1 cue I can copy tomorrow. Your searchlight will find it. Your garden will grow toward it. Your hands will move. You will not amputate wanting. You will convert wanting into weight on the bar you can lift. You will tune what enters, alchemize what stings, and water what matters. Over time, the rooms that used to swallow you become just rooms you can leave, and the life you envied becomes the life you are quietly building, 1 honest inch at a time. Ready for part 10? You said, continue chosen. Audiobooks test 1, Tanpa File said, thought 434s. Some storms don't roar, they hum for months. The long project that never finishes. The career change that looks like fog. the relationship repair that feels like walking across a not quite frozen lake. You wake, check the horizon, and your stomach fills with carbonated static. Your breath hangs high and thin, your jaw edges forward a millimeter. You ask the worst question a tired mind can ask. How much farther? The math breaks your heart because you can't see the end. Overthinking thrives here. It promises control if you just think harder, plan bigger, predict perfectly. Tonight you stop negotiating with distance. You will trade miles for direction. You will stop demanding speed from a nervous system that needs steadiness. Two tools build this shift: the Vector Calibration circuit and the momentum map. Together, they turn shapeless months into navigable days. Breathe before you believe anything. Inhale for 4 and notice the cool thread brushing the bridge of your nose. Hold for 4 and feel your ribs widen like doors on oiled hinges. Exhale for 6 and let your shoulders drop half an inch. Place your palm on your sternum. Feel the warmth meet warmth. The present is the only ground that doesn't move. You will make choices from here, not from fantasy. The Vector Calibration circuit, aim, anchor, act, replaces the question, how fast, with in which direction. Aim is a single sentence that names who you're becoming in this season, not what you're performing. I am a clear, consistent builder of X. The brain needs identity more than itinerary. Identity sets your reticular activating system to fetch cues aligned with who, not just tasks. Anchor is the daily micro-proof that you are already behaving like that person, a measurable inch you will complete, regardless of weather. Act is the smallest wise movement that follows, executed in a container you trust. 20 focused minutes, 1 phone call, a draft sent to 1 human. Aim gives your RAS a north. Anchor gives your nervous system a receipt. Act gives your hands a job. Bridge to biology, kept friendly. Dopamine cares about anticipated progress, not a finish line you can't see. When you shift your metric from done to moved 1 inch on the vector, you generate clean prediction signals that keep motivation alive. The amygdala shouts loudest when the map is blank. A clear aim and daily anchor shrink the blank space enough that the shouting subsides. You aren't trying to be fast. You're trying to be true and repeating. A story. In a quiet apartment at 10:13 p.m., your laptop glows like a small moon. You've been working on a book for 9 months and mostly rehearsing excuses. Heat sits under your collarbones. Your mouth tastes metallic with stale coffee. The old you would design a perfect writing week and then drown in it by Tuesday. You run Vector Calibration. Aim. I am the kind of person who writes 1 honest paragraph that helps 1 human. Anchor. Daily paragraph before 8 a.m. sent to a friend. Act. You set a 20-minute focus field for tomorrow morning with the return word, paragraph. Your chest loosens by a degree. The new question is not, when will the book be done? It is, did I move in the direction of a writer today? Tomorrow, under a gray morning sky, you send a paragraph with your pulse in it. Your friend replies with a single sentence that names what landed. The vector grows a spine. Weeks later, the pile of paragraphs is a book skeleton. Distance didn't get smaller. Direction did. Pause and feel your seat bones settle. Notice the fabric along your collarbone, the subtle difference in temperature at the crook of your elbow. Listen for the softest sound, the refrigerator's breath, the hush of a vent. Sensation widens your field. A wider field makes choice possible. Now map the months with the momentum map. Long arcs die in vagueness. The map makes rhythm visible. It has 4 beats you can walk even when tired. Harvest, highlight, hedge, handshake. Harvest is a weekly sweep where you gather raw reality, what actually moved, what resisted, what emerged that you didn't plan. You do this on paper to slow your mind enough to see. Highlight is you selecting one lever for the next week, not 5. 1. Your RAS prefers a single high-contrast target. Hedge is how you protect that lever. Buffers in the calendar, the boundary gate for distracting channels, a simple if-then for likely disruptions. Handshake is your micro-commitment to another human. You send a brief, "This is the 1 inch I'm moving by Friday." Brains trust social promises more than whispers. So do teams. Science without the lab coat. The default mode network loves abstraction. Weekly highlight constrains it. Implementation intentions, your if-then hedges, prime subcortical loops to fire without argument. If it's 7 a.m., then I open the document and write the paragraph. Prediction error teaches your brain fast, even when you miss. If your harvest is honest and your hedge is updated, you reduce the friction of next week. Translation: repeat the rhythm, not the drama. Do a live micro-rep. Think of the long arc currently fogging your chest. Inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 6. Whisper your aim once. Write an anchor you can complete before noon tomorrow. Name your act in a single sentence with a clock, then add 1 hedge. If the morning derails, I'll run a 10-minute window at 4 p.m. Finally, choose 1 person for a handshake and send the sentence now. Feel the tug in your belly as you press send, like stepping onto a narrow bridge. That tug is not danger. That's your nervous system saluting a real promise. Another story. Your team is building a feature with fuzzy requirements and a leader who answers in metaphors. The room feels like soup. You introduce the momentum map in a 5-minute campfire exchange. Harvest. Last week we shipped the auth flow. We got stuck on billing semantics. Highlight. This week's lever is a 5-user pilot with 1 success metric, hedge. If legal review slows us, we switch to mock contracts to test UI. Handshake. By Friday at 3, pilot running with Team Beta. Shoulders drop. Slack pings become fewer and less feral. Friday arrives with a pilot alive and 1 honest metric. The month has shape. Check your body again. Spread your toes inside your shoes. Feel the floor push back. Unclench your jaw by letting your tongue rest on the roof of your mouth. Let your eyes sweep left to right slowly. Corners come back into view. Tunnels dissolve when corners return. Long arcs require a second nervous system lever, tempo tuning. Your energy runs in ultradian waves, about 90 minutes up, 20 down. Overthinking ignores waves and demands linear grind. Tempo tuning rides the wave and parks the board when it dips. You plan 1 high-tide focus field in your personal peak window, 1 low-tide administrative slot, and 1 shore break, 10 minutes where your eyes go long and your breath goes slow. You mark the shore break like a meeting because brains respect calendars more than intentions. When you park during low tide, shame will whisper, "You're falling behind." You answer with physics. Muscles need the eccentric phase to grow. Minds need downshift to integrate. Recovery is not a luxury. It is part of the rep. Bring in a tiny drill called the 1-meter win. Big distances make your amygdala yell. 1 meter quiets it. At the start of any session, you name a 1-meter move you can complete in 3 minutes that makes the next 10 inevitable. Open the doc, paste the outline, name the file correctly, draft the first sentence. You execute the meter and then ride the momentum into the rest. If you get interrupted after 3 minutes, you still bank a win your confidence ledger can cash. Ledger entries compound into trust. A scene, late afternoon, office air stale and warm, your brain wobbly like a shopping cart with a bad wheel. The deck due tomorrow looks like a puzzle poured on the floor. You tempo tune, one 90-minute high tide in the morning, one 20-minute shore break after, one low tide slot in the late afternoon when you'll tidy assets. Right now, run a 1-meter win, collect 3 best slides into a spine, and label the gaps TK. 3 minutes in, your shoulders drop, the cart's wheel steadies. You write another 17. The evening arrives with room to cook without guilt. The map governed the mood, not the other way around. Notice the temperature difference between the backs of your hands and your palms. Feel the fabric on your thigh, the way the seam presses. Hear a faraway sound, traffic like ocean maybe, and let that widen your sense of hear. Overthinking shrinks rooms. Sensation returns square footage. There is a saboteur specific to long arcs, drift, not failure, not disaster, tiny direction loss compounded by weeks. You'll install a drift detector. It's a 2-question daily check at shutdown. Did I move 1 inch on the vector? Did I spend more time orbiting than building? Orbiting includes rereading the plan, renaming files, polishing a sentence you refuse to share. If drift is present 2 days in a row, you fire the probe, then plan loop on the vector itself. Test your aim with a real human. Verify your anchor isn't heroic. Adjust your act to the smallest wise movement. Drift becomes data, not doom. Pair this with the 72-hour promise, a compact with yourself. Anything important you're avoiding must produce a public artifact within 72 hours. A paragraph, a mock-up, a question to a stakeholder, a pilot date. Another human must be able to see it. Brains trust what eyes can see. The artifact may be rough. Rough is the point. It ends the hostage situation where your mind holds your project for ransom in exchange for perfect certainty. A quieter story. Sunday morning, early light pools on a wooden table. You write your harvest, 3 inches moved, 1 avoided. You highlight a lever, ship pilot invite. Hedge, if there's CTO delays, prep a no CTO version. You send the handshake. Thursday 10th, invite goes. As you set the index card down, your chest softens. The week is still a week, but it has a lane. That afternoon, at a park, your breath feels like a normal person's breath. Birds sound like birds again, not alarms. Your inner prosecutor will say, this is just productivity dressed as therapy. It isn't. It's nervous system design. When the brain knows the direction, the smallest proof, the window, the hedge, it reduces threat signaling. Less threat means more blood in your prefrontal cortex, which means clearer thinking with fewer spirals. You are not squeezing yourself for output. You are releasing yourself from fog. Add one more element to steady the long game, the North Star brief. Once per quarter, you write a 1-page brief to yourself as if you are a project you love. 3 paragraphs. Paragraph 1 names your aim in present tense and the values that define success beyond metrics. Paragraph 2 lists the constraints you accept this season, hours available, resources, health, caregiving, limits that are real. Paragraph 3 names 3 arenas where you'll seek signal, who you'll ask, what you'll test, what you'll measure. You print it and tape it where your eyes land in the morning. The brief is not a manifesto to impress anybody. It's a promise to take the long game personally. Breath check. Physiologic sigh. Small inhale, another sip. Long exhale through pursed lips. Feel the exhale drape across your chest like a warm cloth. Sense the gentle pressure where your lower back meets the chair. Soften there. Let your eyes rest on a color in the room for a beat longer than usual. Color is ballast. Sometimes the long arc isn't a project, it's healing. Grief, burnout, rebuilding trust. The tools translate. Vector, I am a gentle steward of my energy. Anchor, walk 10 minutes at noon. Act, text one friend I can be unglamorous with. Momentum, map, harvest the hard days without accusing yourself. Highlight a lever like sleep by 11. Hedge with an if-then, like if the mind spirals at 1 a.m., I'll run a 90-second weather rule and a body scan. Handshake with a therapist or friend. The metric is not brightness, it is return. Each return teaches your nervous system that dark is not endless. It is weather you can walk through at human speed. Identity turn, kept simple and radical. You are not the distance left. You are the direction chosen and the inch taken today. You are the awareness that can set a north stack proof and move with mercy. When the old voice says you should be farther, you answer with the 5-word window you learned earlier, tuned for vectors. Direction matters. Move 1 inch. Then you move. One last scene to stitch it all. A product launch slid by a week. The team's chat smelled like panic. Heat climbed your neck. The narrator reached for a bullhorn. You wrote in the channel, Harvest, API stable, billing stuck. Highlight, unblock billing with pilot. Hedge, mock contracts if legal stalls. Handshake, Thursday, 3 p.m., pilot live. You breathed. You ran a 1-meter win, draft the pilot invite, and DM'd it to the stakeholder. At 3:02 on Thursday, the pilot lit. Not fireworks, a steady glow. That night, you walked home under streetlights, the air cool on your forearms, your lungs filled low. The city sounded like itself. You weren't done. You were moving, aligned. Notice your breath now. Inhale for 4 until the belly lifts a finger's width. Hold for 4 and feel your heart tap calmly. Exhale for 6 until your shoulders drop. Look left, catch a frame. Look right, find an edge. The room widens, the path appears. Aim, anchor, act, harvest, highlight, hedge, handshake. Tempo tuned, 1 meter 1, not everything at once, one piece today. Before sleep, give your RAS a quiet assignment. Show me one honest cue that confirms my vector tomorrow. In the morning, it might arrive as a sentence from a friend, a checklist seen in a cafe, a paragraph that lands with more ease than yesterday. You'll mark it in your ledger, stitch it to your brief, and walk another inch. Over months, inches become a road. Over years, roads become a life. When your mind asks again, how much farther? Let your body answer with a breath and your hands answer with an inch. This is not about getting there. It's about leaving here in the right direction every day until the person you intend to be is the person your nervous system expects. Ready for part 11? You said, continue chosen. Audiobooks test 1. Tanpa File said, thought for 37s. Some days the noise isn't loud, it's low and constant, like an appliance you forgot to turn off. You wake with a thin film of worry on your tongue, a faint pressure behind the eyes, a hum along the collarbone. Nothing is on fire, and you still feel singed. Overthinking loves this climate because it doesn't need a crisis to feed. It eats ordinariness. Tonight you'll install an operating rhythm that keeps your mind from treating normal days like emergencies. Not hacks, architecture. 2 anchors will hold your day at both ends, a morning clear channel ritual and an evening shutdown sanctuary. Between them, you'll build self-trust like a bank you can spend from under pressure. The point isn't to sterilize your life, it's to let meaning speak louder than static. Before code, breath. Inhale for 4 and notice the cool ribbon at the bridge of your nose. Hold for 4 and feel your ribs widen like quiet doors on oiled hinges. Exhale for 6 and sense your shoulders drop half an inch. Place a palm on your sternum. Warmth meets warmth. The body learns safety first. Cognition follows like a respectful guest. The clear channel ritual begins before the world climbs into your pockets. 3 moves, spoken softly, so your reticular activating system can hear you. Prime, pin, proceed. Prime is 2 breaths, 1 physiologic sigh, small inhale, another sip, long exhale, and 1, 4, 4, 6, while your eyes sweep left to right, gathering corners so your midbrain remembers you're not in a tunnel. Pin is 3 lines on a card. Aim, who you're practicing being today. Anchor, the smallest proof you'll complete by a clock. And attitude, the word that sets your nervous system's posture. Curious, steady, kind. Proceed is a 60-second start line switch. Open the object, name the first noun, lay 1 track. You don't consult the feed, you don't negotiate with mood. You put boards under the tires and roll. A story from gray pre-dawn. The room smells faintly of yesterday's coffee. You can feel sleep still clinging to your lashes, a gentle grit at the corners of your eyes. A meeting at 10 has you rehearsing imaginary objections already. You sit at the kitchen table, wood cool under your forearms, and run clear channel. Prime, sigh, sweep, 446. Pin. Aim. I am a clear, steady guide. Anchor. Ship a 1-page brief by 8:30. Attitude. Curious. Proceed. Open the doc. Type brief. Lay 1 track. Here's the 1 decision we'll protect. 10 minutes later, you've drafted ugly scaffolding and set your calendar gate for a 7:40 polish. Your chest feels less like a clenched fist and more like a hand opening to hold something. The day hasn't changed. Your stance has. Science in plain speech. Morning spikes cortisol to wake you. Without aim, your searchlight scans for threat. Clear channel hijacks the spike and assigns it a job, turning generalized arousal into directed energy. The first small action tags your dopamine system with progress, which makes the next inch easier to start. You are not pretending the day will be light. You are choosing where its weight lands first. Notice the temperature difference between your palms and the backs of your hands. Feel the fabric along your collarbone. Listen for the farthest sound, the heater's whisper, a street 3 floors down. Sensation returns you to coordinates the mind can navigate. Bookend 2 is your Shutdown Sanctuary. Overthinking loves midnight because the world grows quiet enough for your inner narrator to shout. The sanctuary is a 3-door room. Drain, decide, dim. Drain is a 3-minute brain dump by hand. You pour sentences out without craftsmanship until thoughts lose their courtroom robes and become ink. Decide is 1 sentence crowned with a clock, the smallest next inch that will begin tomorrow's vector. Aim, anchor, act lives here. Written where morning eyes can't miss it. Dim is a body sequence that tells your vagus nerve it can release the day. A hum for 10 seconds, a slow exhale twice as long as your inhale, then lights lowered, screens outside the bedroom, and the 90-second weather rule if worry returns under blankets. You're not forcing sleep. You're building a room where it recognizes itself. A scene at 11:29 p.m. Phone face down, a rectangle of pale light still stitched behind your eyes. The room carries a little heat. Your jaw wants to chew on the day. You open a notebook and drain without elegance. Looped on the metrics, anxious about CFO question. Proud of how I asked Priya for clarity. Decide. 8:05 a.m. Send revised chart. Dim. Exhale long, lights to low amber. You lie back and place one hand on your belly. Sensations crest, warmth at cheeks, fizz at the ribs, a small flutter in the throat. Weather first, words later. 90 seconds pass. The bed holds you like a boat that has found a dock. Sleep arrives without an argument you had planned to lose. Tie both anchors to a ledger that compounds trust, the self-trust bank. You already started a confidence ledger. Now you'll classify deposits as kept promises to yourself made in the presence of resistance. Deposits are tiny and time-stamped. Ran a 20-minute sprint at 9 despite dread. Set a clean no at 3:10. Shipped paragraph by 7:55. Protection is the part adults forget. You don't spend deposits to buy other people's comfort. Audit is weekly. You read 10 deposits aloud to your nervous system and write one rule of thumb that made them possible. Brains trust receipts. Tomorrow's courage is cheaper when last week's kept promises are in sight. Breathe and let your tongue rest on the roof of your mouth. Feel your jaw unhinge a touch. Spread your toes inside your shoes. The floor answers back, solid and boring. Boring is a gift. Boring is a baseline where you can build. You'll add a tiny identity practice called the witness chair. Pick an actual chair in your space. Sit for 60 seconds once in the morning and once at night. You say quietly, I am the awareness noticing body, thoughts, and urges. Then you list what passes across your inner screen without commentary. Tightness at the collarbone. Thought, you're late. Urge, check phone. The chair's job is to teach your nervous system that observing is an action. You are rehearsing non-fusion, so later, when heat arrives in a meeting or at a dinner table, you can slide back into witness without needing incense or silence. The chair is just a chair. The room grows bigger anyway. A day in motion, mid-afternoon, fluorescent light, a faint smell of dust. You step into a one-on-one where conflict has been avoiding both of you. Heat climbs your neck. You run a quiet witness micro-rep in 5 seconds. Body, thought, urge. Then you use facts, values, request. We started 10 late twice last week. I care about predictability. Can we commit to on-the-dot starts for the next 3? The conversation stays about behavior. Later, at your desk, you jot a self-trust deposit, not because it was grand, but because it was kept. The day's middle benefits from a bridge most people skip, values to calendar. Overthinking keeps values as slogans and schedules as trivia. You will braid them. In the morning, after PIN, you write one value sentence in the present tense that must appear tangibly on your calendar. I am a present friend becomes call Sam at 12:40. I am a precise builder becomes 30 minutes to remove 2 bugs. If the sentence can't find a slot, it isn't a value today. It's a wish. This is not punishment. It protects your values from becoming posters. When people say, I lost myself, often they mean, my calendar never met my mouth. You will introduce them. Notice the air at the edge of your nostrils, cooler on the way in, warmer on the way out. Roll your shoulders once and let the blades slide down, heavy and kind. Find one object in your periphery, its edge, its shadow, and let your eyes rest there a breath longer than they want. The present widens by a fingertip. You also add the neural Sabbath minute. Once each afternoon you walk away from screens and stare at a distance, a tree, a building, a strip of sky, for 60 seconds while breathing slow. The minute is a reset for a visual system exhausted by near focus and a mind addicted to tabs. It's also a ritual that says, I am not my feed. I am an organism in space. On days you feel ridiculous, that sentence alone is enough. Your body doesn't need poetry. It needs fields. There will be protests. A voice says that rituals are crutches. The lab speaks gently. Repetition lays myelin. Myelin makes signal travel faster. What you repeat becomes what you reach for under stress. Crutches? No. You're building floors that do not collapse when the upstairs party gets loud. An evening story. You almost doom-scrolled. Instead, you walked to your sanctuary. The notebook caught the static. Decide named tomorrow's first inch. Dim lowered the hum. You slid into bed and noticed the weight of the blanket along your shins. A pleasant gravity. Outside, traffic hissed like distant rain. You imagined your brain as a city after a festival, crews sweeping confetti from the streets. That picture isn't cute. It's close to truth. Sleep literally clears metabolic byproducts. Cleanup frees processing for tomorrow. You woke without the taste of ash. Fold in a practice for promises with other humans that protects both dignity and momentum, the clean handshake. At the end of any significant interaction, you speak one present tense line with a clock that both sides can remember without opening a calendar. We'll trade drafts by Thursday noon. I'll send the case by 4. We'll test the fix at 10. You follow with a receipt, sent, scheduled, so loops close invisible ways. Your nervous system loves closed loops as much as your teammates do. The self-trust bank does too. Check your posture. Stack your head over your spine like a book on a shelf. Let your shoulder blades settle. Let your breath lay warm on the top of your chest. Listen for one mechanical sound, the quiet tick of a vent, the hum of a light. The room expands a few inches. That is enough. Sometimes the static is spiritual, the question of meaning itself. Overthinking will try to make meaning a math problem. Meaning is usually a pattern of microfits, the way your values and your actions shake hands in the dark. You will practice a 5-line evening witness that finds those handshakes. Line 1, one thing you made. Line 2, one person you served. Line 3, one boundary you kept. Line 4, one repair you performed. Line 5, one sentence beginning with "until now." That marks the behavior you're training. 5 lines, 60 seconds. Inside Shutdown Sanctuary. It's not a report card. It's a lullaby for your nervous system, sung in facts. A tougher day. Feedback landed sharp. Your skin prickled. Your chest narrowed. In the past, you'd rehearse self-defense all night. Today, you ran repair in place, posted a fix, wrote a ledger line. Now, at the witness chair, you list silently, heated cheeks, thought, they're right and you're hollow, urge to hide. You breathe. You remember your identity cue without drama. You are the awareness behind the weather. You are the hands that can move. You whisper, direction matters, move 1 inch, and you set tomorrow's anchor anyway. Courage is quiet here. It sounds like paper sliding under a pen and a breath leaving your chest without a fight. Link these anchors to relationships with the Campfire exchange at home. At dinner, instead of relitigating the day, light the fire, spark with a small, true story, circle with one question and a summary, ember with one next inch. Today had a snag. I owned it. What made your shoulders drop? Want to walk after dishes? The room relaxes because the ritual quit auditioning for safety and built it. When connection is a structure, overthinking has fewer places to squat. Notice your hands. How warm are your palms compared to the backs? What is the light doing to the edges of objects in the room? Hard line, soft blur. Feel the press of your feet against the floor. These are rails your attention can hold while your mind tries to pick fights with phantoms. You're allowed to hold rails. There is one more piece, mercy margins. You will miss days. You will forget rituals. Overthinking will march in with a gavel. Your answer is the second arrow shield and a re-entry exact as a recipe. Sigh, sweep, clear channel pin, start line switch. You do not need an apology tour. You need a doorway that's always unlocked. The doorway will not be embarrassed to see you again. A final scene from a week that would have once pulverized you. Monday's meeting snarled. Tuesday's pilot leaked. Wednesday's sleep was broken. In older years, you'd be a ghost by Thursday. This time, you stayed human by being simple. Clear channel at dawn, self-trust deposits by noon, witness chair at dusk, Shutdown Sanctuary at night. You set one handshake each day that your future self could respect. By Friday afternoon, the project still needed work, but the weather in your chest did not own the week. On your walk home, air slid cool along your forearms. A dog barked twice, nothing dramatic. Your breath went low like it belongs to someone who knows where the ground is. It was not triumph, it was alignment. And alignment is what confidence feels like when it grows up. Let your gaze sweep left to right one last time. Inhale for 4, a calm tide. Hold for 4, feel the quiet knock behind bone. Exhale for 6, feel the chair accept a little more of your weight. Whisper the sentence that programs your searchlight while you sleep. Show me, in the morning, the smallest proof that I'm the person I practice being. Your RES will find cues. Your hands will move. The day will still contain weather. You will still be the sky. You are not a mind waiting for permission to calm down. You are the builder of rooms where clarity can breathe. You are the awareness that pins a vector at dawn and closes doors at dusk. You are the person who keeps small promises until they become a nature. Overthinking will knock politely and loudly, early and late. You will answer with ritual, with breath, with a chair, with a card, with a life that runs on purpose instead of panic. Ready for part 12? You said, continue chosen audiobooks. Test 1, Tanpa Files said, today is integration day, not a test you pass or fail, a day you live. You wake before the alarm and the room holds that pre-dawn hush, a soft gray poured across the ceiling. The old questions try to climb into bed. Are you ready enough? Will you keep it together when the world tugs? You answer the way you've learned to answer, with a quiet ritual that reminds your nervous system who's driving. You breathe 4 to 4, 6, eyes sweeping left to right to widen the room, and you whisper your aim so your reticular activating system knows where to look. You are a clear, kind decider who moves 1 inch at a time. The body registers this like a lighthouse blinking from a familiar cliff. You are not chasing permission. You are commissioning yourself. There's a meeting at 10, a conversation at noon that used to snag your throat, and a focused build block at 2. Overthinking would love to narrate every moment like a sports announcer hopped up on sugar. Instead, you install a day-long frame called the Wise Loop. It's a loop, not a ladder. If you step off, you step back on without ceremony. The steps are written into your bones now. Notice, name, narrow, nudge, note. You notice sensation before story, the cooler air at your nostrils on the inhale, the warmer ribbon sliding out, the faint hum near your collarbone. You name what the mind brings as thoughts instead of orders. You narrow to what matters in the next 10 minutes. letting 100 possible futures watch from the cheap seats. You nudge the smallest wise action into motion. Not grand, not cinematic, just honest. You note one proof in your confidence ledger, because bodies trust receipts more than pep talks. A loop you can walk with tired feet is worth more than a ladder your pride keeps on the roof. At the sink, the water runs warm over your fingers, almost too warm at first, and then just right. The smell of soap is citrus, the kind that makes your throat think of sunlight. You run a 1-minute start line switch on your morning brief and speak the 5-word window you'll carry as a talisman. Direction matters, move 1 inch. The sentence isn't magic, it's a handle. Handles beat theories when the day gets slippery. By 10 o'clock, the boardroom fills with a sound like fabric moving. You feel that familiar quiver behind your sternum, the amygdala raising its hand, as if to say, "I have a very important announcement about doom." You nod at it the way you'd nod at a child who wants to talk during a movie. You run the spotlight shrink. You sweep the room, find your green dot, place a fingertip on your sternum to remind your body it is not a rumor, and you open with 8 words that gave your prefrontal cortex a rail. Here's the one decision we'll protect today. Then you light a campfire. You spark with a story about the bottleneck everyone hates, circle with a single question, and shape an ember into a next inch with a clock. The dialogue tilts from performance to presence. Your jaw unclenches. You can feel the chair support your thighs. The projector hum stops sounding like a threat and goes back to sounding like a machine. Between rooms, your phone buzzes with a message that could easily become a spiral. Quick check-in, concern on scope. The old narrator would put on a robe and powder its face for a courtroom scene. You run S2S without drama. Signal is a small heat at the cheeks, a breath high and thin. Story is maybe they're unhappy, tagged hypothesis. You probe for 10 minutes with 1 clean sentence and 1 offer. The reply corrects your mind's headline. Signal replaces rumor. Your RAS updates its tags like a librarian reshelving a book in the right section. Before noon, the conversation you've postponed for 2 months arrives. A relationship repair that used to feel like walking on thin ice now feels like crossing a bridge you helped build. You step to the boundary compass in your pocket. Value, capacity, context, consequence. And choose a clean container. You use facts values request, proportionate to human dignity. Your voice doesn't shake because you're fearless. It doesn't shake because you're honest. When the other person's face tightens, you feel the first electric jolt in the chest. You run a physiologic sigh to give your vagus nerve a vote. Boundaries land without a thud. The room becomes breathable. You're not a genius. You're consistent. Consistency is better than genius on days when the weather tries to take your house. At 2, you enter your focus field. The desk holds only what belongs, like a stage set by a minimalist with a soft spot for pen and paper. You say it aloud because your biology listens to your mouth. 1 task, 1 context, 1 constraint. Your phone is face down in another room. The parking lot card waits to catch thoughts the way a porch light catches moths. 10 minutes in, the urge to peek crawls up your spine. You whisper your return word, spine, and your hands keep moving like they were born for this. There's a whisper of a headache near your temples from a morning of faces. You drink water, feel the cool hit the back of your throat, and remember that brains are not brains without bodies. Your body thanks you with a half degree of relief. In the afternoon lull when cortisol dips and the city outside sounds like a low ocean, your mind tries an old trick, comparison dressed as research. It offers you a sugary click. You raise the feed tuner with a smile, prune one source for a season, plant a builder who shows process, and program a fetch. Show me one cue worth copying before 4. You look up and see a sticky note on your own monitor from last week. Attach before writing copy. You grin at your own wisdom and obey it. Envy loses jurisdiction when you practice your own rules of thumb. You will meet an error today because days are made by humans. The bug arrives in a channel with a screenshot that looks like a bruise. Heat rises. Your mouth goes metallic. You hum for 10 seconds. Feel the vibration like a small motor in your throat. Lengthen the exhale. Sweep the room with your eyes to widen the tunnel. Vagal tune trio complete. Repair in place launches like a reflex. Name the miss, normalize the surge. Needle. The lever, next the fix. You post a correction within the hour and write a ledger line without flourish. The story your brain stores isn't you never mess up. The story is you never stay down. That story is a better ally. There's a moment around 4 when your energy sags like a rope strung too far between 2 poles. In the past, you would have tried caffeine and self-contempt. Today, you tune tempo like a musician who knows the room. You take a neural Sabbath minute, eyes on distance, breath slow, and then choose a low-tide task that let the mind move without drama. A part of you whispers that you're falling behind whenever you're not sprinting. You answer with science kept small. Ultradian rhythms aren't negotiable, they're gravity. You ride the wave instead of arguing with the ocean. As evening approaches, you prepare for one more moment that matters. The team needs to hear that the pilot is alive and worth continuing, even though a few edges still cut. You could perform. You choose to host. You light a campfire again, spark, circle, ember, then seal with a clean handshake that your nervous system loves because it eats ambiguity like sugar and then crashes. You walk to the window, look at a strip of early night, and run a decompression sandwich because you've learned the 5 minutes after visibility are dangerous. You name one thing that landed, one tweak, one person to thank. The urge to autopsy fades. Your shoulders descend a half inch. The room gets its color back. Tonight, before the day climbs into your skull with shoes on, you step into Shutdown Sanctuary. You drain ink onto paper until the night air becomes the louder thing. You decide 1 inch with a clock, tape the card where morning will find it, and dim the room until your eyelids feel heavier than your thoughts. There's a slight ache around the eyes from a day of looking. There's a soft hum along the ribs that feels like having lifted weights you could actually carry. You place a palm on your chest and let warmth meet warmth, a handshake between layers. You whisper 2 phrases that have bent the arc of this entire season. Bodies make weather, and you are the awareness, not the emotion. Your whole system hears you. Before sleep, you install the last tool that matters now that the toolkit is living inside you. Call it the Keystone choice. Every morning, you make one choice that collapses a dozen later choices into an easy yes. When you choose breath before screen, you collapse debate about when to begin. When you choose the focus field at 9, you collapse a dozen maybes that would nibble your attention into crumbs. When you choose a clean handshake in rooms with stakes, you collapse 100 private monologues that never help. Keystone choices are like knots that hold the net while you fish. They are not heroic. They are repetitive. Repetition is how myelin thickens and how identity becomes default. The Keystone choice is unglamorous and world-changing in the same breath. A final story to round the circle. A quarter ago, Maya stood in a fluorescent conference room with her chest on fire and her tongue like sand. Today, she stands in a different room with different faces and the same human body. The client pauses, searching for a reason to trust. Maya's breath settles down the staircase of 446. She runs Switchboard, alarm, advice, artifact, and lowers the mic on an old memory that once ran her mouth. She lights a campfire, asks for the one outcome that would unlock a yes, moves a pilot into next week with a clean handshake, and closes with a boundary bridge that protects her team's focus. After, she hums once in the stairwell, writes a ledger line, and texts a thank you to the colleague whose small question steered a big room. On the sidewalk, the air is cool along her forearms. She laughs at nothing at all, a sound like a lid clicking shut on an old jar. She is not fearless. She is skilled and gentle with herself, most of all. That is better. Notice your breath right now. Cool in, warm out. Notice your posture, the way your head stacks over your spine when you give it an inch. Notice your feet, real on the floor answering back. The mind that spun catastrophes can also knit nets. The body that clenched can learn to release. The awareness that watched can keep watching without being dragged. When overthinking knocks tomorrow, as it will, you will not hold a debate. You will reach for a loop, a breath, a boundary, a field, a probe, a handshake. You will move 1 inch in a wise direction. Your brain will notice. Your life will accumulate in the only way that human lives ever do, by inches, by days, by small repairs and cleaner promises. Here's the quiet truth you can carry without dropping. You were never broken. You were untrained. Now you're training. The weather will return. You will not become the weather. The world will push. You will widen the room by a few inches and choose. The choice will be small and holy. It will look like a person reaching for a pen, a breath, a doorknob. It will sound like a sentence that fits in 5 words. It will feel like the exact weight you can lift. That is what clear choices and steady confidence feel like. Not armor, but rhythm. When you wake, the old questions may try to climb back into bed. Let them. You have better questions now. What matters in the next 10 minutes? What is the smallest wise action? Who am I practicing being today? You'll answer with your hands. Sleep. The city will keep its own breathing while you keep yours. The brain will sweep the streets. The net will be ready in the morning, the same net you tied with your own rope, breath by breath, inch by inch, day by day. You're not behind. You're in motion, aligned with a north that you chose and a nervous system you've taught to trust you. That is the difference that changes a life.